ASMR History Channel. My name is Sophie, and tonight we're embarking on a soothing journey through time to explore the captivating history of the Franks. Imagine yourself in a serene, ancient landscape where the whispers of the past come to life. We'll delve into the origins of the Franks, their rise to power, and the influential reigns of legendary leaders like Clovis and Charlemagne. So, find a comfortable spot, let go of your daily worries, and allow the gentle murmur of history to guide you through the remarkable saga of the Franks. When discussing the Germanic tribes that played a significant role in the decline of the Western Roman Empire, it is common to think of the Goths and Vandals as the primary groups. These tribes not only ravaged Rome, but also established successor states in the Mediterranean region. However, the impact and enduring legacy of the Frankish kingdom were arguably more profound. From the 6th to the 9th century, the Franks, led by the renowned Charlemagne, achieved the remarkable feat of uniting a large part of Latin Christendom, a feat unmatched during their era, except by the final Roman emperors, whom the Franks greatly admired and sought to emulate. The rise of the Franks to prominence occurred amidst the chaos of the 3rd century, characterized by political instability, internal conflicts, and invasions by barbarian groups following the collapse of the Pax Romana. This tumultuous period provided fertile ground for tribal societies like the Franks to emerge as significant players. While it is challenging to label them strictly as either French or German, the Franks are generally recognized as a Germanic tribe, sharing ancestral connections with the Goths and Vandals. Various accounts exist regarding their origins, with some suggesting their migration from Pannonia to western Germania and northern Gaul after crossing the Rhine, while others propose a more mythical lineage tracing back to the Trojans as portrayed in Homer's Iliad. From the 3rd to the 4th centuries, the Franks frequently conducted naval and river raids against Roman territories in Gaul, encompassing modern-day France, Belgium, Luxembourg, and parts of western Germany. Gaul had been under Roman rule since Julius Caesar's time, but by the 3rd century, the Roman Empire faced significant challenges. With manpower shortages hindering their defence, the Romans struggled to repel neighbouring tribes like the Franks, who seized the chance to exploit Roman vulnerabilities for their own benefit. In the 4th century, the Roman Empire encountered significant challenges with the arrival of the Huns, prompting them to devise new strategies to deal with the barbarian tribes encroaching on their borders. One such approach involved the Romans accommodating these tribes by employing tactics like bribery, granting land, and even integrating tribal warriors into the legions. Among these tribes were the Franks, who adeptly capitalized on this strategy by forming alliances with the Romans. Some Franks even managed to rise to esteemed positions within Roman society, including holding titles such as Consul of Rome. It is plausible that the long-standing ties between the Franks and the Trojans, often portrayed as allies in Roman narratives, may have originated during this era of diplomatic exchanges and interactions. Despite the Franks being portrayed as a unified force, they were in reality a diverse coalition of tribes motivated by their own distinct interests. Their relationship with Rome fluctuated over the course of 2 centuries, culminating in their eventual conquest of northern Gaul in 420 AD, following the dominance of the Visigoths in southern Gaul and Spain. The 5th century marked a period of sustained plundering for Rome, with the Germanic chieftain Odoacer ultimately deposing the young emperor Romulus Augustulus in 476 AD. Following the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, a remnant Roman entity persisted until succumbing to Frankish conquest in 486 AD at the decisive Battle of Soissons. This triumph was not only significant for the Franks, but also for the Merovingian clan. Clovis, a young and valiant warrior, who is the earliest well-documented figure of the Merovingian lineage, led the Franks to victory. Believed to be the son of Childeric, the ruler of the Belgian Franks in Gallia-Bella in northeastern Gaul, Clovis's rise solidified the historical legacy of the Merovingians. His ascent marked a pivotal moment in Frankish history and set the course for the future of the Merovingian dynasty. Childeric's enthralling narrative skillfully guides us through a tapestry of historical events and personalities, shedding light on how his ancestry intersected with pivotal moments in history, from his service as a Roman soldier to the discovery of Childeric's final resting place and the symbolic significance of the golden bees, as well as his subsequent expulsion due to his controversial relationships with the daughters of his subjects. Childeric's life was marked by turmoil and struggles for power. The indispensable role played by Waymod, a loyal confidant who orchestrated Childeric's return after his banishment, adds a layer of loyalty and strategic planning to Childeric's story. The unfolding events, which include the manipulation of the Frankish people against their ruler, and Childeric's triumphant return, alongside his new spouse, paint a vivid picture of political intrigue and calculated moves. Childeric's enigmatic origins, tracing his lineage back to his warrior father Merovec and his mother's previous marriage to the legendary Frankish king Claudio, add depth to his character. The mythical connections, such as the belief that Merovec was fathered by the mysterious figure Kinor, and the role of Marek in shaping the heritage of the Merovingians, shroud Childeric's ancestry in an aura of mystique and wonder. The debates and speculations among historians and chroniclers about his beginnings and the implications for the future of his dynasty only serve to further enrich the enigmatic narrative of Childeric. Despite its somewhat abrupt ending, the historical document of The Barbarians Herod by Gregory of Tours remains a crucial and insightful piece, shedding light on the early Merovingian era. Gregory's introduction to his monumental work, The History of the Franks, vividly captures the tumultuous times of that era, emphasizing the frequent conflicts among nations, religious tensions, and the varying degrees of faith among individuals. He laments the lack of skilled chroniclers to systematically record these events and notes a decline in literary interest in the town of Gaul, reflecting a sentiment often associated with the Dark Ages that followed the decline of the Roman Empire. In his writings, Gregory of Tours presents a nuanced portrayal of Clovis, the celebrated Frankish king, revealing a darker and more complex side to his character. Clovis is depicted as a ruler tainted by betrayal, deceit, and cruelty, as seen in his manipulative schemes that led to the patricide of his trusted ally's son. Gregory's account highlights Clovis's cunning and ruthlessness in navigating the aftermath of this treacherous act with calculated diplomacy, shedding light on the intricate and often brutal power dynamics of that era. These narratives serve to illuminate the grim and violent aspects of the period, echoing the prevailing perception of the Dark Ages, marked by brutality, religious upheaval, and a decline in intellectual pursuits. Clovis's reputation for ruthlessness was well earned, as he swiftly and without hesitation eliminated anyone he perceived as a threat or betrayer during his rule. His governance style was characterized by a cold and calculated approach aimed at maintaining his dominion at any cost, illustrates Clovis's unrelenting cruelty is the tragic story of Keric and his descendants, who not only faced capture but also endured the humiliating punishment of having their long hair sheared off before meeting their demise. The accounts chronicling Clovis's reign are filled with tales of brutal vengeance and aggression, showcasing his willingness to personally carry out gruesome acts in pursuit of his dark objectives. His mastery of patience and strategic timing added an ominous layer to his already fearsome reputation, setting the stage for the inevitable clashes with enemies, be they Frankish invaders or even members of his own family. Each confrontation only served to further emphasize Clovis's readiness to resort to extreme measures in order to solidify his power and maintain control over his realm. Despite attempts by historians like Gregory of Tours to offer explanations or justifications for Clovis's actions by pointing to alleged misconduct or immoral behaviour on the part of his targets, the undeniable truth remains that Clovis's rule was defined by an era of fear and the brutal enforcement of his authority. His legacy as a formidable and merciless ruler is deeply ingrained in historical records, painting a vivid picture of a leader who spared no effort in asserting his dominance, even if it meant resorting to the most barbaric methods available to him. Clovis's meticulous preparation for his military operations was a facade to conceal his true intention of expanding his territory by seizing land from others, resorting to bribery to prevent potential desertion among his men. He faced backlash when they discovered that the promised gold was actually just gilded bronze. In response, Clovis adamantly defended his actions by threatening those who questioned him with execution, swiftly quelling any dissent. As his reign progressed, he systematically eliminated rival relatives and kings, demonstrating his unyielding pursuit of power. Despite his ruthless tactics, Clovis earned the admiration of Gregory of Tours, a Gallo-Roman Catholic bishop known for writing in rustic Latin, who viewed him as a significant historical figure despite acknowledging his brutal deeds. Gregory's strong religious beliefs were evident in his practices, such as creating potions from dust collected from saints' tombs and relics, showcasing his deep reverence for the divine. This behaviour raises questions about whether Gregory believed in a form of greatness that transcended traditional moral boundaries, similar to his tendency to venerate kings alongside saints. However, Gregory's assessments of Clovis's successors suggest a more nuanced perspective, hinting that his admiration for Clovis might have been influenced by the political context of the Merovingian era and Clovis's unexpected conversion to Christianity, especially his embrace of the Nicene Creed. Clovis's wife, Clotilde, persistently attempted to convert him to Christianity and ensured their children were baptized in the faith. Despite her unwavering efforts, tragedy struck when their firstborn son, who had been baptized, passed away shortly after. The second son, also baptized, fell ill, adding to the family's challenges. Gregory's fascination with Clovis likely stemmed from a mixture of political considerations and the unexpected turn towards Christianity, which was deeply rooted in Catholicism and marked a significant shift in the history of the Merovingian dynasty. Despite Clotilde's persistent and heartfelt pleas to Clovis to renounce his pagan beliefs and embrace Christianity, his conversion did not stem from a genuine spiritual transformation. Instead, it was a calculated decision motivated by pragmatic considerations, much like the Roman Emperor Constantine before him. Clovis recognized the strategic advantage of aligning himself with the Christian faith to bolster his military endeavors. However, what sets Clovis apart is his intentional selection of 9 Christianity over the prevalent Arianism practiced by neighbouring rulers. The fundamental difference between Arianism and 9 Christianity lies in their divergent views on the nature of Jesus Christ's divinity. While the Arians stressed the singular divinity of God and rejected the concept of the Holy Trinity as potentially leading to idol worship, the Knights believed in the triune nature of God, comprising the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit as equal and eternal beings united in one. By embracing 9 Christianity, Clovis positioned himself as a forward thinker, aligning with the theological stance that would eventually shape the foundations of modern Catholicism. Clovis's reign heralded a pivotal era in Frankish history, marked by the establishment of a unified realm for his progeny to inherit. Nevertheless, his decision to divide the kingdom among his offspring instead of designating a single heir sowed the seeds of future discord and instability within the Frankish Empire. This practice of dividing territories among heirs would plague European monarchies for generations to come, highlighting the enduring impact of Clovis's choices on the political dynamics of the region. Emulating the military prowess and cunning strategies of their father Clovis, his descendants swiftly found themselves entangled in a fierce and complex struggle for dominance over the Frankish throne. Rather than opting for direct confrontations, they resorted to intricate plots, conspiracies, and territorial expansions to outmaneuver each other and unify Francia under a single ruler. Theuderic held sway over the northern reaches of the kingdom from Metz. Clodomir governed the southwest in Orion. Childebert presided over Paris, and Clotaire ruled the northeast from Soissons. Despite their shared lineage, the sons of Clovis were torn apart by their individual ambitions and disputes over territorial control. The emergence of Theudebert, a skilled and militarily astute descendant of Theodoric, added another layer of complexity to the already strained relationships among the siblings. The conflicts among Clovis's heirs were not only internal, but also faced external challenges from neighbouring tribes such as the Thuringians, Burgundians, and Visigoths. These clashes, rooted in long-standing animosities and territorial ambitions, contributed to an environment of turmoil and instability within the fragmented Frankish kingdom. The rivalry with the Burgundians, despite their common Catholic faith, was particularly bitter due to historical grudges and familial vendettas. The tragic fate of Clovis's son Clodomir at the hands of the Burgundians intensified the cycle of violence and revenge. The ruthless tactics employed by the Burgundians, including the treacherous ambush that claimed Clodomir's life, shocked the Franks and fueled their thirst for retribution. Despite facing setbacks and losses in their military campaigns, the surviving sons of Clovis, Clotaire, Childebert, and Theuderic, persisted in navigating the treacherous political landscape, driven by a mix of familial loyalty, personal ambitions, and the desire to avenge past wrongs. The intricate web of alliances, betrayals, and conflicts within the Frankish kingdom mirrored the turbulent times they lived in, where power often hung in the balance of bloodshed and cunning diplomacy. During this particular epoch, the rationale behind entering into conflicts was not solely founded on noble ideals, but primarily focused on the practical advantages of expanding territories and plundering resources. The prowess of a Merovingian monarch was measured by their ability to secure these essential components, as a failure to do so could undermine their credibility among the populace, who were treated more as followers rather than loyal subjects at that point in history. automatic, but had to be earned or bought through various means and favours. Following the demise of Clodomir, his children were placed under the care of their grandmother, Clotilda, who happened to be the wife of Clovis. Despite inadvertently sparking tensions with the Burgundians, Clotilda eventually achieved sainthood due to her pivotal role in converting Clovis and the Frankish community to Catholicism. However, her own offspring, Clotaire and Sherbet, chose to ignore the rights of their nephews and instead decided to seize the estates left behind by their deceased sibling. Their nefarious intentions became clear when they presented their mother with a pair of scissors and a sword, hinting at potential harm or even death for their young nephews. In a tragic turn of events, Clotilde shocked many by abandoning her two young grandsons, aged 10 and 7, to the mercy of their ruthless sons. Clotaire carried out the heinous act himself, while Sherbet could only weep helplessly. This barbaric act led to the tragic demise of both nephews, except for one who managed to escape with the help of loyal allies, and eventually sought sanctuary in a monastery after a daring getaway. Through these cruel actions, Clotaire and Sherbet achieved their goals, but at a great cost that tainted their legacy forever. Vicious and cruel beyond comprehension, the heartbreaking division of their deceased siblings' territories continued to unfold as life carried on its relentless march. Theuderic, the valiant eldest offspring of Clovis, found himself entangled in a fierce conflict against the Burgundians, steadfastly refusing to partake in the treacherous act of slaying his own nephews. However, any assumptions of ethical concerns guiding his actions were proved to be misguided, as Theuderic's true nature revealed itself through his opportunistic alliances. In a cunning move, Theuderic joined forces with his sibling Clotaire to confront a new adversary, the Thuringians from the northeast, who had violated a treaty by mercilessly executing Frankish captives. As chronicled by Gregory of Tours, Theuderic, the formidable firstborn of Clovis, roused his loyal followers to denounce the heinous acts of the Thuringians. As the impending clash with the Thuringians drew near, they resorted to setting clever traps by concealing pitfalls beneath the seemingly innocuous grassy terrain. However, their elaborate stratagems proved futile against the unstoppable charge of the Frankish cavalry, showcasing how even the most intricate plans can crumble in the face of sheer force. The conquest of Thuringia not only expanded their territories and brought newfound wealth, but also gifted Clovis's younger son, Clotaire, with a prestigious spouse from the Thorian royalty named Rund. Despite vehement disputes between Theuderic and Clotaire regarding the princess, Clotaire ultimately asserted his claim over her based on her capture by his men. Despite Theuderic's initial ascendancy, he could not shake off his deep-rooted ambition to reunify Francia under his rule. While both brothers resided in the newly acquired Thuringian territories, Theuderic secretly plotted to eliminate Clotaire and consolidate his power. Despite 2 decades passing since Theuderic's assumption of leadership, his unrelenting drive and ambition persisted, propelling him relentlessly towards the ultimate goal of reuniting Francia under his sole command. Enraged by the betrayal and deceit he had faced, Clotaire's fury simmered within him for an extended period. When summoned to his brother's presence, he navigated the courtyard with caution, sensing an air of suspicion that hung heavy in the atmosphere. With a sharp eye, Clotaire detected the concealed feet of potential assassins lurking behind a canvas. This discovery only served to heighten his vigilance, prompting him to stick close to his bodyguards and opt for an alternate route to reach his brother safely. The incident served as a poignant reminder of the critical critical importance of being mindful of one's surroundings, particularly for a Merovingian king, where threats could lurk in unexpected corners. However, the narrative did not culminate there. It continued to unfold with further intrigue. Meanwhile, the conniving Theuderic found himself scrambling for an excuse for summoning Clotaire. Thinking on his feet, Thor presented Clotaire with a silver tray from his vicinity, a decision he would later come to regret as the prized possession slipped from his grasp. Filled with remorse, Theuderic enlisted his son, Theudebert, to request the return of the tray. Whether Clotaire was oblivious to the scheme or playing along remained unclear, but he promptly returned the tray as requested. In the midst of this drama, Clot's brother Childebert found himself entangled in his own family turmoil, adding another layer of complexity to the unfolding saga. Childebert's aspirations turned towards Spain, where his sister Clotilde, named after their mother, was married to the Visigothic king Amalaric. Despite the potential strategic benefits of an alliance between the Franks and Visigoths, the marriage between Amalaric and Clotilde faced escalating tensions stemming from religious differences. Amalric's adherence to the Arian creed clashed with Clotilde's commitment to the orthodox nine Christian faith of the Merovingian lineage, centred on the belief in the Holy Trinity. The religious discord between the royal couple reached a boiling point, with Amalric subjecting Clotilde to degrading acts during her church attendance. The situation deteriorated until Amalric's violent actions caused Clotilde to bleed, prompting her to appeal to her brother Childebert for intervention. Seizing the opportunity, Childebert swiftly capitalised on the turmoil, leading to the conquest of land as Amalric chose to flee rather than face the consequences. As Amalric made preparations to depart with his fleet, a crucial oversight dawned on him. The precious stones he had intended to take were locked away in his treasury, a realization that halted his departure. This oversight, akin to forgetting to extinguish a flame before leaving, held the potential to alter the course of history. Returning to retrieve the jewels, Amalric found his path obstructed, setting the stage for further twists and turns in the unfolding narrative. After the heart-wrenching conclusion of Amalric's epic tale, the focus now shifts to Childebert, who is faced with a tragic turn of events as his sister meets an untimely demise during their journey back home. This unexpected loss adds a layer of profound sorrow to the story, as she is laid to rest beside their father Clovis in Paris. It serves as a poignant reminder of the uncertain and perilous nature of life in the Middle Ages, where death could strike swiftly through various means, like battles, diseases, complications during childbirth, and other lurking threats. As the narrative progresses, we witness Childebert and his brother Clotaire regrouping to launch a new campaign against Burgundy in the absence of their elder sibling Theuderic. Theuderic's decision to lead his men towards Clermont-Ferrand for plundering marks one of his final acts before his eventual passing, leaving his lands to his son Theudebert, who emerges as a formidable warrior in his own right. Now, with only Childebert and Clotaire, the surviving sons of Clovis, at the forefront, the story delves into the intense power struggle involving Theudebert, the son of Theuderic. Theudebert's prowess as a warrior, demonstrated by his legendary victory over the Danish ruler Hek of Beol, solidifies his position and enables him to outwit his uncles in a complex tapestry of alliances and rivalries. Despite the underlying tensions and shifting power dynamics among the Merovingian rulers, Theudebert earns accolades from historians such as Gregory of Tours for his exceptional leadership and military skills. Despite being revered for his exceptional leadership qualities, he became the first Merovingian ruler to feature his own likeness on gold coins, a move that contrasted with his predecessors who had depicted Roman emperors on currency. Like many of his contemporaries, Theudebert had multiple wives and concubines, with one of them, Tuia, going to extreme lengths to win his favour, even rumoured to have plotted against her own daughter, whom she saw as a rival for Theudebert's affections. Tragically, Theudebert's rule came to an abrupt end when he was fatally wounded by a rampaging bison during a hunting expedition, leaving his fragile son to take over the throne, a reign that would be short-lived. Eventually, his territories were amalgamated under the reign of Clotaire, the last surviving son of Clovis, who, through perseverance and the passage of time, managed to reunite Francia after a prolonged period of internal turmoil. Following Theudebert's reign, his successor Clotaire rose to power and sired numerous offspring with various partners. By the year 561 AD, only 4 of Clotaire's children remained, prompting the division of Francia into distinct quadrants. Childebert, Clotaire's eldest son, briefly ruled from Paris and gained infamy for becoming the first Merovingian monarch to face excommunication from the Pope due to his marriages, including 2 sisters among his 4 spouses. After Childebert's reign, his realm was further divided among his 3 younger brothers, Guntram governing the southeastern kingdom of Burgundy, Sigebert ruling Austrasia in the northeast, and Jeric presiding over Nuria in the northwest. Guntram, also known as Good King Guntram in historical records, was lauded for his moderation, forgiveness, kindness, and religious devotion, setting him apart from his siblings with his noble characteristics. King Guntram, despite his unassuming appearance, displayed exceptional skill in navigating the complex responsibilities of his royal position. He not only managed to persuade a Parisian congregation to spare his life for 3 years, ensuring the continuity of the Merovingian legacy by overseeing the upbringing of his successors, but also successfully maintained his benevolent rule amidst a tumultuous 40-year feud among his brothers' families that threatened to weaken the Merovingians. Through his astute leadership, Guntram proved himself to be a resilient and capable monarch who upheld the values of his lineage despite the challenges he faced. On the other hand, Chouac, the youngest son of Claire, wasted no time in asserting his claim to the Frankian kingdom following his father's passing. This bold move immediately ignited tensions with his brother Sigebert, especially after Sigbert's marriage to the prestigious Visigothic princess Brunhild. In an attempt to rival his brother, Joy hastily wed Brunhild's sister, Guswin, despite initial hesitations on her part due to their differing religious beliefs. The marriage between Goswin, an Arian Christian, and Chouac, who adhered to polygamous practices, was fraught with challenges from the start, setting the stage for a tumultuous and ultimately tragic series of events. Initially agreeing to monogamy, Joy soon resumed an affair with his former lover, Fredon, a cunning servant who held significant sway over him. The sudden and suspicious death of Gussin, discovered strangled in her bed, appeared to be the result of political scheming orchestrated by Fredon. In a shocking turn of events, Chouac swiftly married Fredon following Goswin's demise, further complicating the intricate network of relationships within the royal family, particularly since Sigebert was married to Guswin's sibling, Brunhild. These twisted and interconnected marriages and alliances added another layer of complexity to an already tumultuous period in Merovingian history, marking a dark chapter in the saga of the Frankian kingdom. In the intricate and tumultuous world of the Merovingians, where ancient blood feuds held more weight than social gatherings, a web of vengeance and deception unfolded with every turn of events. Brunhild's unyielding quest for retribution over her sister's tragic demise sparked bitter conflicts with Sigurd and his sibling Chilperic, leading to a series of calculated moves and counter-moves in the power struggle. Sigurd's bold advances in encroaching on Chilperic's territory met a sudden and violent end when he fell victim to a carefully orchestrated assassination scheme, masterminded by none other than his own cunning widow, Fredun. Seeking refuge and protection for her son, Childebert II, Brunhild orchestrated a covert operation to ensure his safety by orchestrating his discreet relocation to the sanctuary of Metz under the protective mantle of King Guntram, in a bid to safeguard his kingdom from the machinations of Chilperic and Verdun. Guntram astutely designated Childebert II as his heir, a strategic move that would prove crucial in the ensuing power struggles and deadly intrigues that plagued the Merovingians' realm. The downfall of Chilperic at the hands of a shadowy figure named Sallant sent shockwaves through the already volatile political landscape, raising suspicions of foul play and hidden agendas. The potential involvement of Chilperic's wife, Frund, in his demise added another layer of intrigue, fueled by her murky past connections to lethal conspiracies. Fredun, known for her envy-fueled ruthlessness, was implicated in a string of deaths, including that of Sigebert, and was suspected of orchestrating multiple failed attempts on the lives of her adversaries, further deepening the web of suspicion and mistrust that permeated the Merovingians' realm. Despite the uncertainties surrounding the accuracy of these dramatic accounts, the tales of assassination, betrayal, and ambition that defined the Merovingians' world continue to captivate, shrouded in a veil of mystery and intrigue. The enigmatic universe of the Merovingians persists as a rich tapestry of power, struggles, and dark intentions, where the line between reality and fiction blurs amidst the backdrop of regal ambitions and sinister machinations, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of their tumultuous history. In the narrative, Gregory firmly accuses Fredegund of attempting to harm her daughter, exhibiting a strong sense of protectiveness. Despite this, Gregory refrains from making any accusations regarding the death of her husband, Chilperic, showing a commitment to accuracy and fairness even in the midst of personal biases. Gregory's harsh judgment of the deceased Chilperic, whom he labels as the Nero and Herod of his time, may seem unjust. Chilperic's emulation of Roman emperors through the construction of amphitheatres for public entertainment in Soissons and Paris was a notable aspect of his reign. However, it is likely that being likened to Nero would have been a shocking comparison for Chilperic. Additionally, Chilperic's pseudo-intellectualism set him apart from other Merovingian warrior kings, as evidenced by his poetry compositions and the introduction of 4 new characters to reform the alphabet. An artwork depicting Chilperic, listening attentively to one of his poems, showcases his multifaceted personality. Yet, his daring theological discussions, particularly his radical views on the Trinity, only serve to deepen Gregory's disapproval. Gregory's cautioning of Chilperic regarding his controversial beliefs on the Trinity reflects the former's role as a moral authority figure. Chilperic's response, indicating his intention to seek validation from like-minded individuals, highlights his confidence in his unorthodox beliefs. However, his dismissive attitude towards dissenters, including prominent theologians, exacerbated tensions with Gregory, showcasing the clash of ideologies and authority. This This incident underscores the significant influence and power wielded by bishops during that historical period, with Gregory serving as a prime example of their authority. The bishops, like Gregory of Tours, often trace their lineage back to ancient Romans, which added to their prestige and influence in both secular and religious matters. This intertwining of Roman ancestry and Christianity contributed to the formidable position that bishops held in society during that era. Amidst a tumultuous backdrop of intricate political intrigues and power dynamics entwined within the senatorial families, the unexpected passing of Chilperic Gregory stirred a complex mix of relief and apprehension among the populace. Fredon's swift rise to the throne of Neustria in France as regent, backed by the influential Guntram, faced staunch opposition from the formidable Brunhild, the reigning matriarch of Austrasia. The escalating tensions between Fredon and her own son, Childebert II, eventually escalated into a full-blown conflict that saw Fredon leading her forces to quash her rebellious son, leading to his tragic poisoning the following year. As Brunhild harboured deep resentment towards Fredon for her series of misfortunes, she continued to wield her authority over Austrasia and Burgundy as regent for her young grandsons, setting the stage for an inevitable showdown between the two formidable queens. However, the sudden demise of Fredon abruptly shifted the focus onto her son, Clovis II, who inherited the mantle of continuing the family feud with unwavering determination. With a formidable coalition of supporters by his side, Clovis II decisively ousted Brunhild from power, subsequently ordering her brutal execution to solidify his dominance. The ruthless actions of Clovis II, bearing a striking resemblance to the Machiavellian tactics employed by his mother, marked a tragic and cataclysmic end to both illustrious bloodlines. Despite the heart-wrenching betrayals and the harrowing episodes of violence that unfolded, the enduring power struggles left an indelible mark on the political landscape of the region, shaping its future trajectory in profound and unforeseen ways. Gregory's vivid depiction of the decline within Frankish society provided a stark contrast between the reverence and conversion displayed by earlier generations and the plundering and destruction carried out by the current one. The diminishing respect for the Lord's bishops and the desecration of sacred sites painted a bleak picture of societal degradation and moral decay that troubled Gregory deeply. In his literary works, Gregory skillfully wove parallels between the deteriorating state of affairs in Frankish society and the prophetic visions of Childeric, foreseeing a shift in their royal lineage from mythical figures to savage beasts. The diverging fates of Queens Fredon and Brunhild stood as poignant symbols of the tumultuous times, with Fredon meeting a peaceful end, while Brunhild faced a tragic demise, torn apart by loss and strife. Despite her controversial reputation, Brunhild's legacy was marked by her ambitious projects in infrastructure, military campaigns, and financial management, highlighting her prowess as a diplomat and leader. In contrast, Fran excelled in warfare and political strategy, earning differing reputations for the two queens. Gregory's personal connections to Brunhild and Sigurd offered insight into his perspective on the queen's roles in shaping the turbulent political landscape of the time. Gregory emphasized the vital role played by the ecclesiastical hierarchy, including bishops, saints, and the Pope in Rome, in sustaining Frankish society. The intrusion of figures like Cheric and Fran into this established order only heightened Gregory's concerns about societal decline. He acknowledged the delicate balance maintained by the Merovingian rulers through a blend of administrative tactics and military might, underscoring the importance of these elements in maintaining order amidst the political upheaval of the era. The Merovingian rulers had continuously strived to maintain their control over their subjects, who at times exhibited the freedoms characteristic of a tribal community. The ruler would promise rewards, and the subjects would reciprocate with tax payments, establishing a form of exchange that sustained the regime. Despite the ongoing conflicts within the dynasty, there was never a viable alternative to Merovingian rule. In situations where a Merovingian monarch proved to be weak, their followers would often find themselves serving a stronger relative who took on the leadership role. Following the clash between Verdun and Brunel, it became evident that Merovingian governance had been weakened by a rising Frankish nobility, who had been enriched and ennobled through previous conquests. These nobles emerged on the battlefield as proxies of the ancient Marav kings, rather than representing the Merovingians themselves. After the resolution of the Merovingian dispute in 613 AD, Clovis II, also referred to as Clote the Young, confronted the assertive Frankish nobles. Initially making small requests, the nobles gradually coerced Clodomir into ratifying the Edict of Paris, granting them increased rights and privileges, including more influence over court appointments and tax relief. Over time, the position of the mayor of the palace, a crucial court role, transformed into a lifelong appointment, leading to the concentration of power by these mayors as the true wielders of authority behind the Frankish throne. One such mayor, Pepin, played a pivotal role in shaping events, pressuring Clotaire to cede a third of his kingdom to his successor, Dagobert, resulting in a fragmented realm. Clotaire yielded to Pepin's considerable wealth and influence. Pepin, with the support of Bishop Arnold of Metz, solidified his position as mayor of the palace in Austrasia in 623 AD, overseeing the upbringing of the young Merovingian Prince Dagor alongside Bishop Arulf, as per a widely accepted legend. The descendants of Pepin and Arnold, through a series of generational transitions, eventually paved the way for the rise of the Carolingians, a significant dynasty that served under a monarch. Dagobert, who ascended to the throne following the passing of his father, was renowned for his relentless determination and strategic acumen. As the last formidable Merovingian ruler, he held sway over vast territories, including Austrasia, Neustria, Burgundy, and Aquitaine. Notably, Dagobert made history by becoming the first monarch to be interred in the prestigious Basilica of Saint Denis. His demise heralded a new era characterized by weak kings who merely acted as ceremonial figureheads, easily manipulated by the powerful palace mayors. Monarchs such as Cherts and Cloa presided over a fragmented Francia, their authority significantly curtailed by the pervasive influence of the mayors within the political landscape. One notable mayor, Grimoald, orchestrated a cunning scheme to install his son as the successor to a Merovingian ruler who had no male heir, despite the existence of a legitimate male successor. Following the ruler's death, Grimoald's son, Childebert, assumed the throne while the rightful heir was exiled to Ireland, setting the stage for a tumultuous downfall orchestrated by the vindictive claimant seeking retribution. During the late 7th century, the mayors adopted a sophisticated approach, deftly manipulating the selection of Merovingian heirs, engaging in strategic conflicts, and skillfully brokering peace agreements to maintain their grip on power. By the year 668 AD, the locus of authority had decisively shifted to the mayors, a fact astutely observed by the English monk and historian Bede. Pepin II, known as Pepin of Herstal rose to prominence in Austrasia as its palace mayor. By 680, he had successfully expanded his sphere of influence to include the mayoralties of Neustria and Burgundy, consolidating his position as a dominant and influential figure in the region. Pepin's astute political manoeuvring and strategic alliances solidified his standing as a formidable force within the evolving political landscape of the time. During Pepin II's tumultuous reign as Duke and Prince of the Franks in the turbulent historical landscape of Francia, he skillfully navigated intense power struggles and territorial disputes. His decisive triumph in the battle for supremacy over Francia against a rival palace mayor, whose actions had the potential to alter the course of history, solidified his authority. After successfully reuniting Francia, Pepin turned his focus towards fortifying his realm against neighbouring adversaries such as the Alemanni, the Fans, and the Franconians. However, this period of unity was short-lived, as Pepin II's passing at the age of 79 set off a chain of events that would ultimately shape the future of Francia. A crucial juncture in Pepin II's legacy was marked by his decision to designate his young grandson, Theodoric, as his heir, bypassing his other son, Charles Martel. Charles Martel, a renowned military strategist known as the Hammer, had a complex dynamic with his family, especially with Pepin's widow, Plectrude. Despite being imprisoned and deprived of his rightful inheritance by Plectrude, Charles Martel managed to escape and assemble his own forces to confront the separatist faction challenging Francia. Following a setback in the Battle of Cologne, Charles Martel regrouped in the Eifel Hills and orchestrated a daring ambush that shifted the course of the conflict in his favour. His subsequent victories at the Battle of Vinci showcased his tactical brilliance and unwavering determination. Prior to advancing towards Paris to quell the rebellion, Charles Martel had to confront Plectrude and her supporters in Cole, a feat he achieved through a combination of military finesse and astute political manoeuvring. Charles Martel's conquest over Plectrude and his subsequent reunification of Francia under his rule highlighted his resilience and outstanding leadership qualities. Despite facing internal discord and external adversities, Charles Martel emerged as a pivotal figure in Frankish history, laying the foundation for his enduring legacy as a legendary military strategist and ruler. Charles Martel's treatment of defeated enemies was a striking display of his unique blend of compassion and strategic brilliance. His decision to show mercy to individuals like Plood and Dudal not only set him apart from his contemporaries, but also showcased a rare combination of strength and kindness. By sparing their lives, Charles not only demonstrated his power and confidence, but also made a calculated move reminiscent of Julius Caesar's tactical leniency. This act of mercy was not simply an expression of empathy, but a deliberate strategy to consolidate his authority and reinforce his position. Despite his numerous triumphs and growing influence, Charles understood the importance of maintaining a Merovingian ruler as a symbolic figure to legitimize his rule. His skillful handling of rebellions and alliances in the region highlighted a delicate equilibrium of power that underscored his political acumen and military expertise. Charles's adept navigation of complex political landscapes while maintaining military superiority illustrated his shrewdness and long-term vision. His decisive actions against uprisings and adversaries further cemented his reputation as a formidable and astute leader. The decisive Battle of Tours in 732 AD marked a pivotal moment in Charles Martel's enduring legacy, solidifying his title as the saviour of Christendom. His resounding victory over the Umayyad Caliphate not only secured his dominance in the region, but also effectively halted any further encroachments by his foes. The enduring significance of this battle continues to spark debates among historians, with divergent perspectives on the magnitude and repercussions of the conflicting forces. Nevertheless, Charles's triumph at Tours remains a pivotal event in European history, underscoring his strategic acumen and military prowess in the annals of warfare. In an era marked by the formidable presence of 400,000 Umayyads, a significant clash unfolded as they faced off against their adversaries, the Franks. The Umayyads, perhaps in their hubris, had underestimated the strategic prowess and military might of the Franks. Prior to the pivotal Battle of Tours, the Umayyads had mainly encountered opposition from Otto the Great, the ruler of Aquitaine. It was during this critical juncture that Charles Martel made a pivotal decision to ally with Otto against the Umayyads, under the condition that Otto would yield his realm to Frankish authority. This bold and calculated move not only showcased Charles Martel's astuteness in diplomacy and warfare, but also solidified his enduring legacy, surpassing even that of Clovis, particularly due to his esteemed lineage and connection to his grandson, Charlemagne. Despite his widespread acclaim among the populace, Charles Martel did not receive the title of Christendom's saviour from the clergy of the period, who viewed his appropriation of church assets for military campaigns as excessively secular. However, some historians suggest that the clergy may have tacitly recognised the necessity of such measures during a time of existential crisis, especially when faced with the imminent threat posed by the Umayyads. Following his triumph at the Battle of Tours, Charles Martel bequeathed a united Frankish kingdom to his two sons, Charlemagne and Pepin III. Unlike the tumultuous successions that had plagued previous generations, these siblings exemplified a harmonious coexistence, providing each other with unwavering support and maintaining a delicate balance between the military forces and the church. Charlemagne, distinguished by his devout nature and piety, made the decision to embrace a monastic life in 747 AD, setting a precedent for future monarchs who prioritised religious devotion over regal authority. This shift towards saintly rulers who placed a greater emphasis on spiritual matters would endure throughout the following centuries, shaping the course of Frankish and European history. The profound influence of Christian devotion on the Germanic community is vividly portrayed in the legend of a saintly monarch who devoted his life to serving God after resolving unresolved conflicts. Through the strategic organisation of a blood court at Connacht, he ingeniously lured thousands of rebellious aristocrats, leading to their capture and subsequent execution, effectively eradicating the Amani tribe. This decisive action paved the way for his brother Pepin to courageously overthrow the last Merovingian ruler, Childeric III, and ascend to the throne as the Frankish king, receiving the papal endorsement which marked the formal end of the Merovingian Dynasty and the dawn of a new era for the kingdom. Although Childeric III, the final ruler of the Merovingian lineage, has now faded into historical obscurity, a poignant painting entitled "The Last of the Merovingians" depicts him in a state of captivity and powerlessness, his shorn hair symbolising the collapse of his dynasty and the beginning of a new chapter in history. Despite the tumultuous reign of the Merovingians, they made significant advancements in administrative structures and monetary policies, upholding Roman traditions and introducing their currency system. The Merovingians implemented a taxation system that funded their military endeavours, reducing the Franks' reliance on plundering for resources. They not only adopted Roman currency, but also began minting their coins, which in turn bolstered tax revenue and facilitated trade. Latin was established as the official language at the Merovingian court, with officials utilising Latin shorthand and papyrus for record keeping. A distinctive aspect of Merovingian governance was the personal presence and military leadership of the king, as his direct involvement in battles often determined the outcome of conflicts and the expansion of their territories. The Merovingians, following in the footsteps of late Roman officials, implemented a method of governance that involved travelling in ox carts throughout their territory to hear and address the grievances of their people. However, in terms of legal advancements, the Merovingians lagged behind neighbouring tribes like the Visigoths and Burgundians, who had already established written codes for civil law. Unlike these tribes, the Merovingians did not develop a structured legal system, but instead relied on oral tradition and precedent when making legal decisions, lacking a unified set of Roman-inspired laws. While the Salic law code, formulated during Clovis' reign, regulated areas such as inheritance and criminal justice for the Franks, other ethnic groups adhered to their own distinct regional legal customs and practices. The emergence of titles like comes and dukes within the noble class during the later Merovingian period bore resemblance to the administrative roles in ancient Rome, foreshadowing the eventual establishment of counts and dukes in the Kingdom of France. The Merovingians held sway over Francia for an impressive 250 years, outlasting any other royal lineage in Western Europe during that time period. Renowned scholar Ian Wood commended the Franks' achievements in the 6th, 7th and 8th centuries, underscoring the substantial impact of the Merovingians on subsequent historical developments. Although the Carolingian Renaissance tends to overshadow the Merovingians, the latter played a pivotal role in setting the stage for the Carolingian era. Charlemagne Pepin's ascension to the Frankish throne in Soissons continued the legacy of Clovis, the first Frankish ruler who had triumphed over the vestiges of Roman Gaul. The notion of Pepin seeking and obtaining papal approval may have been a narrative crafted later to legitimise the Carolingian succession. Notably, Pepin's interactions with Pope Zachary during his tenure as palace mayor under Merovingian rule shed light on the intricate political landscape of that period. Pope Zachary's adept management of Pepin's inquiries underscores his crucial role in the transition from the Merovingians to the Carolingians, marking a significant shift in the power structure of the time. In the intricate political landscape of the time, Pope Zachary's adept diplomatic skills emerged as a crucial factor. Faced with the imminent threat of the Lombards advancing towards Rome and strained ties with the Byzantine Empire, the pressing need to establish a new alliance led to a strategic agreement with the Franks. As the era transitioned into Pope Stephen II's tenure, his management of the growing tensions with the Lombards showcased a less refined approach. In a carefully calculated move, he embarked on a diplomatic mission to Pepin in the year 753 AD to secure his support and protection. This diplomatic endeavour resulted in Pepin's coronation as king by the Pope, thereby solidifying his position. Furthermore, Pope Stephen bestowed upon Pepin's heirs, Charlemagne and Carloman, the future kings, the prestigious title of Parisians of Rome. This symbolic gesture underscored their commitment to defending the city and the papacy from Lombard threats, marking a significant moment in history as it represented the first instance of such actions undertaken by a pope. Navigating the intricate political web of the period, Pope Zachary's adeptness in diplomacy proved to be a pivotal asset. Confronted with the looming danger of the Lombards inching closer to Rome and strained relationships with the Byzantine Empire, the imperative to forge a new alliance prompted a strategic pact with the Franks. As the leadership baton passed to Pope Stephen II, his management of the escalating tensions with the Lombards demonstrated a less refined touch. In a strategic move, he embarked on a diplomatic journey to Pepin in 753 AD to secure his patronage and protection. This diplomatic mission culminated in Pepin's elevation as king by the Pope, further consolidating his authority. Additionally, Pope Stephen bestowed upon Pepin's descendants, Charlemagne and Carloman, the future rulers, the esteemed title of Patricians of Rome. This act underscored their commitment to shielding the city and the papacy from Lombard invasions, serving as a pivotal moment in history as it represented the initial occurrence of such actions taken by a pope. The crossing of the Alps marked a pivotal moment in history as it marked the first occasion where a pope crowned a king, setting a precedent that would shape the actions of future Carolingian rulers. Embarking on their expedition in the spring, Pepin and his army followed the path once taken by Hannibal during his march towards Rome. The Lombards, a significant force during the Dark Ages, initially offered little resistance, opting to renew their treaty with the papacy in the face of Frankish threats. However, their defiance triggered a second Frankish retaliation, ultimately resulting in a temporary resolution of the conflict. In the aftermath, the Lombards agreed to various concessions, including tribute payments, providing hostages, and committing to maintain a distance from Rome. Subsequently, Pepin ceded control of the newly acquired lands to the papacy, laying the foundations for the establishment of the Papal States. The evolution of the Pope's role following these events was profound, transitioning from a purely spiritual leader to a figure with temporal authority. While it took time for the papacy to fully harness this newfound power, Rome gradually emerged as a significant player in the power dynamics of the High Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Concurrently, Pepin shifted his attention towards solidifying his control over southern France, a region that had long posed challenges for the Franks. Through a series of relentless military campaigns, he succeeded in subduing Aquitaine. Although Pepin's military campaigns may not have been defined by legendary battles, they solidified his reputation as a proficient military strategist. Pepin's military endeavours brought about a novel approach to warfare for the Franks, emphasising the importance of deploying large armies, ensuring adequate supplies, and possessing superior equipment to outlast and outmaneuver their adversaries. This strategic adjustment marked the beginning of a protracted and grueling form of conflict that would be further refined by the Franks in the years to come. In the aftermath of Pepin's sudden passing, the burden of co-ruling their inherited territories fell upon Charlemagne and his younger sibling, Carloman. The logistical challenges that arose were significant, with the brothers often finding themselves separated and eager to assert their authority. Charlemagne, then 26 years old, assumed control of the lands in the north, while his brother Carloman, who was only 17 at the time, governed the territories in the south. The complexities of managing their realms became apparent as regions like Aquitaine and Gascony resisted submitting to their rule following their father's death. Carloman's reluctance to engage in conflicts placed a heavier military burden on Charlemagne's shoulders. stepped in to mediate between the siblings in an effort to maintain peace, throwing her support behind Charlemagne. To strengthen Charlemagne's position, she orchestrated a strategic marriage alliance with the Lombards. However, this move strained relations not only with the Pope, but also with Charlemagne, who may have felt sidelined and overshadowed by his brother's growing influence on the battlefield. As the power dynamics within the Carolingian dynasty continued to evolve, the brothers grappled with the intricate challenges of sharing governance and navigating their roles within the realm. The unexpected demise of his brother Charlemagne in 771 AD proved to be a fortuitous turn of events for Charlemagne, as it paved the way for his unchallenged rise to sole rulership. Despite the cloud of suspicion hanging over Charlemagne's death, with some speculating it was due to a fatal nosebleed, Charlemagne's reign began, ushering in a new era marked by a blend of military prowess and intellectual advancement. While his rule was characterized by frequent military conflicts, it was also a period of significant progress in governance, architecture, and scholarship, which collectively became known as the Carolingian Renaissance. The expansion of his empire necessitated innovative administrative strategies and provided the resources essential for the support of cultural and educational endeavours. Before achieving these milestones, Charlemagne found himself entangled in a conflict with the Lombards, whom he had offended by divorcing his wife, and who posed a threat to the papacy. Following in the footsteps of his father, Charlemagne forged an alliance with the Pope and swiftly took decisive action against the Lombards. Towering at a height of 5'9", Charlemagne cut an imposing figure, leading his meticulously organised Frankish forces into battle. Despite attempts to downplay his military prowess, Charlemagne's strategic brilliance was evident in campaigns like the Siege of Pavia against the Lombards, showcasing his tactical acumen. The siege presented challenges, with the defenders of Pavia resorting to tactics such as famine and illness to outlast the Franks. Undeterred, year after year, Charlemagne led his troops into battle, further cementing his reputation as a formidable ruler on the battlefield. Leveraging their well-established military structure and unparalleled logistical prowess, the Franks adeptly navigated the intricate challenges posed by siege warfare, relying on meticulous planning and their sheer numerical superiority. Despite the ever-evolving nature of siege tactics, the Franks consistently demonstrated their expertise in besieging cities such as Pavia, employing innovative strategies to effectively starve them into submission without the need for elaborate siege machinery. Charlemagne's bold decision to seize the Lombard throne and claim the Iron Crown marked a significant turning point in the balance of power, signalling a shift from mere tribute collection to direct control over new territories. Following the triumphant conquest of northern Italy, Charlemagne further extended Frankish supremacy deep into the heart of the Italian peninsula, swiftly quelling rebellions and expanding influence as far as Spoleto and Benevento. The intricate dynamics between the Franks, the Papal States, and the Lombards were characterized by blurred lines of authority and enforcement, presenting Charlemagne with a myriad of challenges, ranging from managing vast territorial holdings to confronting elusive foes in the rugged terrain of the Pyrenees, exemplified by the legendary Battle of Roncesvalles, immortalized in the epic verses of the Song of Roland. Amidst his extensive military endeavours, Charlemagne deftly navigated complex diplomatic engagements, notably during his campaigns in Iberia and the subsequent conflict that marred an otherwise illustrious military career. The intricate interplay of power struggles, Territorial disputes and shifting allegiances added layers of intrigue to Charlemagne's rule, offering a glimpse into the multifaceted tapestry of medieval politics and warfare that defined the era. After Charlemagne's failed siege of Saragossa in northeastern Spain, his military campaign faced a significant setback as his forces were forced to retreat. The situation worsened when the Frankish rear guard and baggage train fell victim to an ambush and were ruthlessly massacred in the mountain pass of Ronal. This defeat proved to be one of Charlemagne's most humiliating moments, a memory he desperately wanted to erase from history. Despite his best efforts to bury the incident, the skirmish persisted in historical accounts, being continually retold and reimagined over the centuries. Following this disastrous clash, the borderlands with Iberia turned into a fierce battleground, prompting Charlemagne to assign his son the task of securing control over the contested buffer zone known as the Spanish March. Despite subsequent victories in this region, they failed to capture the imagination of storytellers in the same way as Charlemagne's earlier conquests. As his empire expanded, Charlemagne increasingly relied on military commanders, particularly his sons, to carry out further conquests and maintain control over the vast territories. Out of Charlemagne's impressive brood of 18 children, 3 sons, Charles, Pepin, and Louis, stood out for their unwavering dedication and effectiveness in advancing their father's ambitious agenda. These 3 sons not only accompanied Charlemagne on his military campaigns, but also led their own expeditions, allowing the Franks to confront multiple enemies simultaneously. This innovative approach of dividing their forces, though unconventional for the time, became a necessity as the Franks extended their rule, especially towards the east. In their confrontations with foes like the Saxons, Avars, and Slavs, the Franks often deployed multiple armies at the same time, targeting various adversaries within a single region. The incorporation of Bavaria into the Frankish realm further facilitated their expansion into the east. By establishing counties and marches, the Carolingians solidified their control over Bavaria, appointing trusted individuals to govern these territories. This in turn led to clashes with the enigmatic Avars, an eastern people who emerged around the time of Lombardy's conquest and the downfall of the Bavarian dynasty. Over the course of the last 2 centuries, the Avars had firmly established their presence in the Danube basin, particularly in what is known today as Hungary. Following their successful raids that garnered them valuable silver and gold, the Avars would retreat to their well-fortified circular strongholds. Descendants of formidable eastern steppe tribes like the Scythians and the Huns, notorious for their intimidating reputation among the Byzantines and their clashes with the Franks, the Avars had solidified themselves as a force to be reckoned with in the region. When they encroached into Bavaria, Charlemagne found it necessary to confront the Avars in Pannonia to safeguard his territories. Upon the clash between Charlemagne's vastly superior forces and the Avars, it was a swift victory for the Franks. The Avars' circular encampments offered little resistance against the military prowess of the Franks, leading to their quick defeat. With the Avar confederation subdued, Charlemagne turned his focus to other pressing matters, delegating the final stages of the campaign to his military cohort to ensure the Avars acknowledged his authority. The Franks confiscated the wealth of the Avars, solidifying their dominance over the defeated tribe. Einhard, a prominent chronicler of the era, meticulously documented the transfer of riches from the Avars to the Franks, drawing parallels between the Avars and the feared Huns as tribes that instilled fear and dread in neighbouring regions. The narrative portrayed the appropriation of the Avars' treasures by the Franks as a rightful reclaiming of resources that the Avars had wrongfully amassed through pillaging neighbouring territories. The act symbolised a shift in power dynamics and reinforced Charlemagne's authority in the region. Plundering was a common practice during the tumultuous era of the early Middle Ages and throughout history, with the Franks often pardoned for their retaliatory expeditions against plunderers. This period of incessant raids, territorial disputes, and power struggles underscored the harsh realities of the time, where might often determined right and the acquisition of wealth and resources was often achieved through force and conquest. Raiding continued to be the primary occupation for steppe hordes and Vikings during the reigns of Marinan and Caroline, despite the increasing significance of taxation and tribute. The conquests brought not only riches, but also the chance to establish new alliances against emerging adversaries. This strategic manoeuvre was particularly evident in the case of the Slavs, who promptly recognised Charlemagne's authority after he gained control over tribal lands belonging to Croatian, Bohemian and Moravian groups. The Slavs then became invaluable allies in Charlemagne's prolonged conflict with the Saxons, a formidable opponent for the Frankish military. Inhabiting densely wooded areas in northern Germany, the Saxons' decentralised tribal organisation presented a significant challenge to Charlemagne's endeavours. Unlike the swift defeat of the Lombards, Charlemagne endured an arduous 18-campaign struggle to subdue the Saxons, employing a range of tactics, including battles, fortified outposts, winter offensives, raids, massacres, and deportations to suppress their resistance. The enforcement of Charlemagne's decree condemning Saxon pagan rituals to death exacerbated tensions, highlighting the religious element of the Saxon wars that went beyond mere territorial conquest. The writer emphasises the religious aspect of the Saxon wars as a unique and deeply motivated conflict compared to other conquests. While religious justifications for warfare can sometimes appear as excuses for expansion, the Saxon wars were distinguished by a profound commitment to religious beliefs. The fervour and determination of the Saxon wars went beyond mere military actions, showcasing the intense religious fervour that drove the conflict. Historian Bernhard Schultz accentuates the extraordinary nature of the Saxon wars as an emblematic crusade characterised by religious zeal and a clear sense of purpose. The chroniclers of Frankish triumphs often portrayed these victories as being aided by divine intervention and spoke in terms that suggested they were fulfilling a divine will. Some scholars have gone as far as to propose that the Saxon campaign might have been viewed as a religious crusade aimed at expanding the realm of God. This interpretation could have potentially served to justify or overlook brutal acts like the Verdun massacre, where 4,500 Saxon prisoners were brutally beheaded under Charlemagne's reign. Despite the horrific nature of this event, the Saxons continued to resist for over 2 decades before eventually succumbing. Interestingly, the Saxons managed to have the final word by placing one of their own on the throne of the Holy Roman Empire, a turn of events that Charlemagne's conquest had not foreseen and inadvertently paved the way for the rise of the Vikings. The Vikings, a group often misunderstood in popular culture, were part of the Norse Germanic community, which included the ancestors of present-day Danes, Swedes, and Norwegians. Initially, the term Viking referred to the act of raiding rather than denoting a specific ethnicity, with individuals described as going Viking when engaging in such activities. The Norse shared a common heritage with other Germanic tribes like the Franks, Goths and Saxons, and worshipped deities such as Odin, who had been revered by southern populations under different names. The conversion of Odin-worshipping territories to Christianity and their subjugation by the Franks may have instilled concerns among the Norse about their own future, especially given their active involvement in the European trade networks that linked Scandinavia, eastern England, and Francia as early as the 8th century. These trade routes facilitated the exchange of valuable commodities like wine, pottery, amber, ivory, and more among the various regions. The Franks were particularly known for their exquisite pottery from the Rhineland, showcasing remarkable craftsmanship that would later gain recognition during the Industrial Revolution. On the other hand, the Scandinavians traded in goods like amber and ivory, possibly sourced from walruses, while the Anglo-Saxons also played a role in this bustling economic environment. The interconnectedness of these regions through trade highlights the economic significance and cultural exchanges that preceded the Viking era. The emporia were vibrant trade centres where a diverse range of crafts thrived, including metalworking, glassworking, basket weaving, boat building, and textile working. Despite their economic prosperity, these hubs were notably lacking in defence mechanisms, leaving them vulnerable to Viking raids that became more frequent in the later part of the 9th century. The Viking invasions were not isolated events. Defensive structures, such as the 30-kilometre-long earth and dike built by a Danish king in 808, became common across Europe after the decline of the Roman Empire. These fortifications not only provided protection, but also served as strategic vantage points for launching counterattacks. The Danish king who oversaw the construction of the defensive rampart had plans for a raid on Freya, and potentially on Aix, the Carolingian capital, before he was assassinated. In response, the ageing Charlemagne took personal command of fortifying naval defences along the North Sea coast to prepare for potential assaults. When analysing Charlemagne's military campaigns, it is crucial to emphasise the key factor that underpinned his successes. The victories of the Franks on the battlefield were not solely due to military tactics or weaponry, but were largely a result of their exceptional management of logistics. Their careful planning and efficient organisation enabled them to fully leverage their population and available resources. Without this logistical prowess, Charlemagne's triumphs would have been unattainable, regardless of any inherent military advantages they possessed. This perspective challenges the conventional belief that the cavalry revolution initiated by Charles Martel was the primary driver of Carolingian dominance in warfare. The Franks' military prowess and success in cavalry strategies are often attributed to the introduction of the stirrup, a significant element that played a role in the establishment of feudalism. This innovation had a profound impact on the organisation of the Carolingian army and the noble class, as those who excelled in these tactics were rewarded with hereditary lands and titles in exchange for their military service. However, recent scholarly investigations suggest that the adoption of the stirrup was a gradual process rather than a sudden transformation. Although the stirrup provided clear advantages in mounting, combat effectiveness, and the stamina of riders, it did not in isolation trigger the rise of shock cavalry as previously assumed. The direct link between the stirrup, shock cavalry tactics, and the elevation of knights and nobles has been called into question. Shock cavalry actually developed later in the Carolingian era, due to improvements in saddle technology and the emergence of a distinct knightly class. The triumphs of Charlemagne's army can be largely credited to his meticulous strategic planning and exceptional leadership skills, with the stirrup playing a role in refining cavalry manoeuvres, but not being the sole factor in the military accomplishments of the Franks. The traditional narrative that connects the stirrup to a revolutionary shift in medieval warfare has been subjected to scrutiny, underscoring the nuanced and gradual evolution of military tactics during that period. In his insightful publication titled Warfare and Society in the Barbarian West, the historian Geosol delves deeply into the distinctive strategy employed by Charlemagne in supplying his army after 800. Charlemagne's innovative approach involved utilising the resources of the royal estates to cater to the various needs of his troops, ranging from essential provisions like wine and flour to equipment. However, Geosol points out that the implementation of these directives faced significant challenges, highlighting the inherent obstacles faced by ancient empire builders like Charlemagne in enforcing their commands. Despite the issuance of clear instructions, rulers of that era often encountered difficulties in ensuring compliance, especially among those actively engaged in battles on their behalf. The shift from mere followers to loyal subjects under the Carolingians marked a complex and multifaceted process, requiring Charlemagne and his officials to navigate a delicate balance between employing persuasion and coercion to achieve their objectives without alienating their followers. Apart from contending with enforcement challenges, they also grappled with an information dilemma. The lack of modern communication channels made it arduous to effectively disseminate regulations and promptly penalise transgressors, further complicating the governance tasks for Charlemagne and his administration. The effective management of the intricate issues related to enforcement and information dissemination posed significant obstacles for Charlemagne as he endeavoured to govern the empire with competence and authority. Despite the formidable challenges, Charlemagne and his advisors displayed a determined effort to overcome these hurdles and maintain control over their vast domain. Their strategic approach to problem solving and governance reflected a commitment to adaptability and resilience in the face of the complex realities of ruling a vast empire in a turbulent era. The upcoming episode will delve into the civic and administrative aspects of Charlemagne's reign, shedding light on his innovative approach that surpassed the limitations of his era. Despite the prevalent belief in mythical creatures such as dragons in far-off lands, it was tangible forces like diseases, natural disasters, and environmental disruptions that significantly influenced human history during that period. Bernhard Schultz's introduction to Einhard's writings underscores Charlemagne's resolute determination to assert control over both human affairs and natural phenomena. His ambitious projects, ranging from constructing bridges, fortresses, canals, fleets, to restoring lighthouses, showcased his forward-thinking leadership and unwavering resolve. However, it became apparent that Charlemagne's grand visions often outstripped the technological capabilities and knowledge available at the time. In addition to the military successes of the Franks, their efforts to harness and mitigate the unpredictable forces of nature echoed the enduring legacy of the ancient Romans. While Charlemagne's presence on the battlefield served as a source of inspiration, his understated demeanour also drew comparisons to the diligent engineers and logistical experts toiling behind the scenes. Despite encountering obstacles in enforcement and communication, Charlemagne persisted in his pursuits, recognising that progress necessitated proactive initiatives, whether in military campaigns or civil engineering projects. Charlemagne endeavours bore fruit as his armies demonstrated exceptional preparedness, robust supply lines, and increased numbers, even in the harsh winter conditions. In contrast to the well-developed urban centres of ancient Italy with their sophisticated Roman infrastructure, the territories beyond the Alps lacked adequate roads and secure river crossings. Charlemagne's initiatives to erect bridges and deploy collapsible boats for river transit in regions devoid of traditional thoroughfares underscored his resolute commitment to surmount challenges and optimise logistical operations. Charlemagne's military successes under the Franks were not solely due to his strategic brilliance, but also to his meticulous preparation for extended campaigns, by ensuring an ample supply of provisions such as food, weapons, attire, and equipment. The Franks were able to sustain themselves and gain a tactical advantage over their adversaries. This careful planning enabled them to assert dominance efficiently, resolving conflicts successfully despite the challenges they faced, such as avoiding military conscription during medieval times. The significance of horses in Charlemagne's military endeavours cannot be overstated. The Frankish cavalry, equipped with well-trained soldiers mounted on multiple horses, adorned with precious metals, played a crucial role in battles and logistical operations. These horses not only provided mobility and strategic flexibility, but also carried essential supplies, enhancing the efficiency of Charlemagne's forces. Skilled horsemen, adept at using swords and spears while maintaining control of their mounts with their knees, maximised the cavalry's manoeuvrability and combat effectiveness on the battlefield. While some may underestimate the role of horses in warfare, the Franks recognised their vital importance. During the conflict against the Avars, the loss of a significant number of horses to illness caused a significant delay in resolving the war, highlighting the indispensable role these animals played in military operations. Beyond their function as mounts in combat, horses served as essential assets for transportation, emphasising their critical contribution to the triumphs of Charlemagne's military campaigns. During that fascinating era, the Frankish military forces garnered significant attention for their strength and prowess on the battlefield. Historians have debated the exact size of their armies, with estimates ranging widely from as low as 5,000 to 6,000 soldiers to as high as 12,000 troops, while some extravagant claims suggested armies of up to 20,000 soldiers. These have generally been dismissed as exaggerated due to the practical challenges of maintaining such massive forces. Despite the uncertainty surrounding their exact numbers, the Franks were able to demonstrate their military capabilities by effectively deploying multiple armies simultaneously, showcasing their leadership skills and ability to command a substantial force of warriors akin to the Byzantine Empire. The Frankish armies were known for their agility and strategic movements, covering impressive distances of 5 to 10 kilometres per day, while carefully considering logistical considerations. To enhance their operational efficiency, the Franks implemented strict discipline within their ranks, imposing bans on drunkenness, penalties for pillaging friendly territories, and even resorting to capital punishment for deserters. The soldiers were equipped with a diverse array of weaponry, including swords, axes, spears, bows, and seaxes, with swords being particularly prized and commonly wielded by the cavalry units. Axes also enjoyed popularity among the Frankish warriors, experiencing a resurgence in use during the Viking Age. Contrary to popular myths surrounding double-headed axes, historical records indicate that the Franks primarily favoured battle axes and throwing axes in their arsenal. Spears emerged as the most widely used weapon Frankish fighters, employed by both mounted and infantry units in a variety of designs and sizes. Insights into Frankish societal customs and burial traditions have been gleaned from archaeological excavations dating back to the 6th century, underscoring the significance of weaponry within their culture and emphasising the martial prowess and importance of military equipment within Frankish society. The spear, a weapon known for its versatility in throwing, thrusting and cutting, underwent various modifications over time. In later versions, decorative wing-like extensions were added near the tip of the spear, initially believed to assist in preventing the spear from getting stuck in enemies or stopping charges from wild animals. These wings are now thought to have been more effective at immobilizing enemy blades, providing a tactical advantage in battle. During that historical period, the round and oval-shaped shield remained a popular choice until the Viking Age. Mail and lamellar body armour, composed of iron lamellae, became more widespread and easier to manufacture compared to mail armour. For those who could not afford iron armour, boiled or padded leather armour served as a viable alternative. The complete set of a warrior's equipment, valued at 40 sel, included a helmet, body armour, sword, spear, round shield, horse and harness. This investment was equivalent to the worth of 40 cows or 20 oxen and 4 horses, illustrating the substantial cost of being well equipped for battle. In the late 8th century, Charlemagne's rule mandated that affluent Franks provide their followers with a comprehensive set of gear, comprising spears, shields, bows and arrows. This requirement strained the Frankish economy, leading Charlemagne to ban the export of armour and weapons. Charlemagne's influence on the Frankish military structure was significant, as he built upon the foundations laid by Pepin, Charles Martel and the Merovingians. Historians like Gibbon emphasise Charlemagne's proactive role throughout his empire, emphasising his commitment to maintaining a strong military force and pursuing territorial expansion as a national priority. Frank's nomadic lifestyle was a tapestry woven with threads of hunting escapades, religious pilgrimages, military conquests, and epic tales reminiscent of Charlemagne's legendary adventures, albeit on a more magnificent scale and with a loftier purpose. His military prowess was not merely a matter of historical record, but a living legacy evaluated by his soldiers, foes, and the valorous exploits that adorned his name. While Alexander the Great had marched forth under the shadow of his father Philip, Charlemagne bore the weight of not just a name, but the collective triumphs and companions of his predecessors. Commanding his battle-hardened legions, he quelled the unruly tribes that lacked the cohesion to defend themselves. Charlemagne seldom encountered a rival who could match his forces in numbers, discipline, or martial skill. Despite the ebb and flow of warfare through periods of peace, his campaigns lacked a singular, monumental clash of overwhelming odds and resounding victory. There lingered a hint of wistfulness in him for the conquests his grandfather had secured over the Saracens. The chronicles of the Franks between 714 AD and 814 AD painted a portrait of relentless conflict and expansion, with a mere 7 years punctuated by the tranquility of peace. As the Franks ascended as the paramount power on the continent during this era, the spectre of how long their march of conquests and clashes would endure hung ominously in the air. Sharpening his acumen in the intricate web of logistical and administrative facets of warfare, Charlemagne ushered in an era of novel governance structures and religious customs among the subjugated peoples, heralding the dawn of the Carolingian Renaissance, marked by a resurgence in intellectual pursuits and cultural flourishing. His adeptness genius in both the theatre of war and the realm of diplomacy positioned him as a fitting heir to the legacies of Caesar and Augustus, culminating in the defining moment of his reign. This pivotal juncture unfolded unexpectedly during the solemn Christmas Day Mass of 800 AD within the hallowed confines of the ancient St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, a city steeped in the annals of antiquity and tradition. The confluence of timing and location seemed almost preordained for Charlemagne's ascent to glory. The tale of his coronation reads like a script from the hands of fate itself, as Charlemagne, immersed in prayer, found himself suddenly anointed as the Emperor of the Romans by Pope Leo II, the weighty title bestowed upon him in an unforeseen twist of destiny. The narrative of this historic event, handed down through generations, encapsulates the essence of an unwitting protagonist thrust into the imperial limelight through a divine decree. Transitioning from the lead narrator's perspective, the discussion seamlessly shifts towards Charlemagne's response upon being bestowed with imperial titles during his life and times. Initially, there is a glimpse into Charlemagne's hesitancy towards the titles, as he expressed his reservations by stating that he would have abstained from partaking in the church ceremony if he had been forewarned. However, historical records paint a slightly different picture, hinting that Charlemagne's crown was ceremoniously placed on the altar, suggesting that perhaps he was not entirely caught off guard by the proceedings. This portrayal of Charlemagne as a hesitant leader, drawing parallels to the likes of Jon Snow in Game of Thrones, is intriguingly contrasted with the meticulously planned coronation that seemed to have been orchestrated by both parties involved. The narrative then delves deeper into the intricate dynamics between Charlemagne and Pope Leo, shedding light on the series of events leading up to the coronation. A year prior, the Pope had sought refuge in Charlemagne's court, following serious allegations and threats from an enraged mob in Rome. Despite facing challenges such as hostile crowds, political discord, and the looming threat of invasion, Pope Leo engaged in diplomatic negotiations with Charlemagne to solidify their burgeoning alliance. The strategic interplay between the Carolingians and the pontiffs, which involved a delicate balance of military support being exchanged for legitimacy, culminated in the formalization of their partnership. The narrator portrays Pope Leo as a skilled navigator of the tumultuous political landscape, showcasing his resilience and adept diplomacy. Despite encountering opposition and obstacles, Pope Leo stood his ground and actively collaborated with Charlemagne to establish a firm foundation for their relationship. The symbolic gestures exchanged between them, such as the presentation of the keys to St. Peter's tomb, underscored their mutual commitment to strengthening their bond. The narrative underscores the significance of this alliance in shaping a new order amidst the backdrop of the looming threat of Islam in the Mediterranean region, highlighting the strategic importance of their collaboration. In the medieval era, the concept of the religion of the sword held a profound significance in theological beliefs, portraying Christianity as a faith governed by the symbolic representation of two swords, one emblematic of spiritual authority and the other symbolizing temporal power. This doctrine, deeply rooted in biblical teachings, served as a guiding principle for Christians, aiming to lead them towards spiritual enlightenment through a dual leadership system. The idea was intricately tied to the notion of translatio imperii, which denoted the transfer of imperial control from the Romans to the Franks, highlighting the delicate balance between spiritual and worldly power in the governance of medieval societies. Peter Wilson, a prominent historian, delves into a thorough analysis of the power transitions within the Holy Roman Empire, shedding light on how biblical interpretations and the concept of successive world empires influenced these shifts. The belief in a singular empire, considered to be divinely ordained and passed down through generations, played a crucial role in shaping medieval political ideologies. The presence of the Byzantine Empire added a layer of complexity to the narrative of imperial succession, as they claimed Roman lineage and governed extensive territories, challenging the dominance of the Franks in the medieval power structure. The medieval world was characterized by a convoluted geopolitical landscape, marked by conflicting power dynamics and rivalries among various empires and authorities vying for legitimacy and supremacy. The advanced society and historical heritage of the Byzantine Empire, juxtaposed with the Franks' expansion into new territories, heightened the intricacies of power struggles during that era. Despite these challenges, the theological underpinnings of dual leadership and the inheritance of imperial authority continued to shape the medieval understanding of governance and the exercise of power. The series of tumultuous events that unfolded during the rule of Empress Irene of Athens and the subsequent coronation of Charlemagne revealed the intricate power struggles of the time. The rift between Pope Leo and Empress Irene was not merely a personal disagreement, but rather a reflection of the complex geopolitical landscape of that era. This marked a significant turning point in the relationship between the papacy and the Byzantine Empire, particularly in light of the Byzantines' adoption of iconoclasm and their withdrawal from the Italian peninsula. These events, in turn, laid the foundation for the eventual schism between the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Catholic Church, highlighting the deep-seated tensions between the two entities. The emergence of the Frankish and Byzantine empires as formidable global powers added a new layer of intricacy to the political scene of the time. While the Merovingian Frankish rulers had already asserted their independence from Roman authority, Charlemagne's coronation by the Pope raised important questions about the balance of power between secular and religious leaders. The implications of receiving the imperial crown from the Pope, including the Pope's authority to both appoint and remove an emperor, posed a significant challenge for Charlemagne and his successors as they navigated the complexities of their dual roles as secular and religious leaders. As the influence of the papacy continued to expand throughout medieval Europe, popes increasingly wielded their spiritual authority to excommunicate rulers and rally support for crusades. This shift in power dynamics, exemplified by Charlemagne's coronation and its aftermath, had long-lasting repercussions that reverberated through the centuries. Napoleon's deliberate decision to crown himself echoed Charlemagne's concerns about the implications of papal authority, underscoring the enduring impact of these historical events on the intricate interplay between secular and religious authority in European politics. Napoleon, acting with the blessing of the Pope, demonstrated a keen understanding of the symbolism of power that resonated with the practices of the ancient Romans, despite the Christian beliefs that characterized the later Roman emperors. His recognition as emperor, a title that transcended papal authority, and his choice to wear a laurel wreath instead of a traditional crown were indicative of Napoleon's personal style and preferences. This comparison prompts an in-depth exploration of Charlemagne's efforts in state building, inviting scrutiny as to whether his approach was rooted in Roman traditions or represented a departure towards a new political model. Scholars have engaged in extensive debates to unravel the complexities of Charlemagne's empire, seeking to decipher its true essence and legacy. Diverging from the Roman Empire in significant ways, the Carolingian Empire expanded its territorial reach beyond the boundaries boundaries of its predecessor, with its power centre located in Austrasia, a region that had never been fully under Roman control. Some scholars argue that the Carolingian Empire can be viewed as a direct continuation of Roman governance, pointing to the titles and honours adopted by the Carolingian rulers. Charlemagne, known as the Emperor of the Romans, favoured the title Charles the Most Serene Augustus, underscoring his perceived divine right to rule and lead. While both the Romans and the Franks engaged in conflicts at various points, they shared a common appreciation for peace and stability, prioritising expeditions for wealth over defensive battles within their territories. The concept of peace, as a result of fairness, held significant importance in both societies, with the emperor assuming roles such as mediator, judge, and enforcer to maintain order. This principle of ensuring peace through a monopoly on power forms the basis of contemporary statecraft. The Romans and the Franks excelled in upholding this delicate balance, leaving lasting influences on modern governance practices and strategies. In the afterlife, the emperors were revered as divine stewards, chosen by God to lead their people on the path to salvation. The esteemed Carolingian emperors, with the backing of the popes and Frankish nobility, were not only well educated, but could also trace their noble lineage back to the late ancient era. Regarded as optimates, they commanded respect for their elevated status, wealth, and unwavering moral principles. Their solid intellectual foundation played a pivotal role in solidifying their authority, especially considering the Carolingians' earlier service as a noble family under the Merovingian kings. Their profound beliefs concerning governance, the universe, and the divine allowed them to justify their entitlement to rule, marking the beginning of the Carolingian Renaissance era. The Carolingian Renaissance, celebrated for its revival of ancient knowledge, emphasized the deep connection between Roman and Frankish civilizations, while the Italian Renaissance of the 15th and 16th centuries holds more popularity. The Carolingian Renaissance was equally vital in the preservation of classical literary treasures. Were it not for the Carolingians, numerous ancient manuscripts would have likely been lost to time. Their diligent efforts led to the safeguarding of countless handwritten copies of original Latin and Greek texts housed in Lombardy. The dedicated Carolingian monks played a pivotal role in protecting the works of esteemed authors like Cicero, Tacitus, Livy, and Plutarch, guaranteeing their enduring impact for future generations of scholars to cherish and study. The transition of writing styles from the Greco-Roman scripts to the Caroline minuscule by the Frankish monks marked a pivotal advancement in the history of writing. The introduction of lowercase letters within the Caroline minuscule script not only improved the legibility and understanding of texts, but also served to clearly distinguish different parts of the written work. Following the Caroline minuscule, the adoption of the Gothic script, also referred to as black letter, showcased a more intricate and ornate style of handwriting, although it posed challenges in terms of close reading due to its intricate nature and complexity. The revival of the Caroline minuscule during the Italian Renaissance in the form of the humanist minuscule brought about a cleaner and more readable script that left a lasting impact on the development of modern typefaces. Despite the limited access to literacy in the Carolingian era, where predominantly monks were engaged in writing and reading, these individuals played vital roles as teachers, messengers, and explorers, contributing significantly to the dissemination of knowledge and ideas across different regions. Monasteries, which were established during the reign of Charlemagne, not only served as places of residence for monks, but but also operated as centres of hospitality for travellers and visitors. Monks, renowned for their intellectual pursuits, extensive journeys, and unwavering commitment to their faith, were highly respected for their societal contributions and their pivotal role in upholding and sharing knowledge during this significant period of history. During the Carolingian epoch, the monasteries played a multifaceted role, not only providing practical assistance to travellers, but also emerging as hubs of intellectual pursuits under the patronage of Charlemagne. This significant development led to the establishment and proliferation of monastic scriptoria throughout the Carolingian Empire. These scriptoria, where monks painstakingly copied and illuminated manuscripts, represented a pivotal advancement in the realm of book creation, particularly due to the use of parchment as a more durable alternative to papyrus. The meticulous process of producing parchment involved treating animal skins with lime, stretching them on frames, and allowing them to dry to create durable pages for books. The quality of parchment used varied, often reflecting the wealth and status of the owner, while the bindings of these manuscripts were sometimes embellished with luxurious materials like jewels, ivory, and metals, further underscoring the prestige associated with these works. The manuscripts produced in these scriptoria were characterized by elaborate illustrations and intricate designs, often incorporating rare pigments such as blue, gold, and silver to enhance their visual appeal. These illuminated manuscripts, exemplified by renowned works like the Lindau Gospels, attracted considerable interest from collectors throughout history, including prominent figures like J.P. Morgan. The fusion of textual content with artistic embellishments in these manuscripts continues to captivate audiences with their vibrant colours and exquisite craftsmanship, serving as a testament to the rich cultural and artistic heritage of the Carolingian era. The legacy of these illuminated manuscripts endures as a vivid reminder of the sophistication and creativity of the Carolingian Empire's intellectual and artistic endeavours. During this fascinating era, the emergence of private libraries within royal residences and vast estates led to a notable increase in the number of books owned, with collections ranging from a few dozen to numerous volumes. Charlemagne, in particular, boasted an impressively extensive library. By surrounding himself with a court filled with brilliant minds, he essentially created a sophisticated blend of a book club and a group of elite advisors. Despite not being proficient in writing himself, Charlemagne had a preference for listening to readings rather than reading independently, suggesting a potential affinity for podcasts and audiobooks if he were alive today. His personal collection included treatises on a wide array of subjects such as history, art, law, Latin language, medicine, herbology, astronomy, and mathematics, often presented in practical guidebooks complete with diagrams and illustrations. During a time when many literary works focused on Christian theology, Charlemagne's library stood out for its inclusion of pieces by Greek and Roman polytheists, which caused unease among monks who typically excluded such materials from their collections. The tension between preserving classical works and embracing new ideas was palpable, leading to ongoing debates about the value of these texts. Scholars in the Carolingian period saw pagan writings as tools for interpreting the Bible and as models to emulate in terms of style, despite their controversial pagan origins and differing ethical viewpoints. The perception of classical authors during this period was heavily influenced by their pagan beliefs and the conflicting moral values they presented. The Carolingians viewed classical texts as a means to an end, extracting beneficial elements from secular poets that were deemed intellectually Ages, while disregarding any references to pagan deities. This ongoing debate reflected a broader struggle between tradition and innovation, preservation and progress, mirroring the continuous discussions within the Frankish Empire about the nature of their governance and the significance of classical literature. During the Carolingian era, a notable divergence existed among scholars concerning classical authors, with some adamantly opposing them, while others, including Charlemagne, actively sought out rare copies of these texts. Within Charlemagne's library, an extensive collection of classical works was housed, showcasing his fascination with the technical aspects of classical education, rather than focusing solely on linguistic and stylistic elements. Among his most treasured volumes was Augustine's City of God, a book he had recited to him daily, underscoring his profound appreciation for classical literature and its enduring value. The influence of Charlemagne's stance in the scholarly sphere was unmistakable within his library, where scholars frequently requested to borrow his copy of Pliny's Natural History. His primary goal was to revitalise knowledge and champion the liberal arts, which encompassed rhetoric, logic, music, geometry, arithmetic, and astronomy. Despite the challenges of his administrative duties, he dedicated himself to the study of the liberal arts and encouraged his descendants to follow suit. His court evolved into a significant centre for intellectual discourse, attracting brilliant minds from various parts of Europe who likened him to illustrious figures like King David. Charlemagne's itinerant rule resulted in a mobile court reminiscent of the scholars who trailed Napoleon, with both leaders holding exploration and knowledge in high regard. These scholars played a crucial role in managing Charlemagne's realm, while composing poetry and prose in his honour. The emperor's court served as a vibrant nucleus for scholarship and cultural exchange, uniting scholars in their devotion to Charlemagne and the liberal arts, fostering a rich intellectual environment that endured beyond his reign. Charlemagne's cautionary words about not marrying intellectuals or placing them in positions of power seemed to conflict with his own actions, given that he frequently selected intellectuals to serve as his ministers. This apparent inconsistency notwithstanding, Aachen emerged as a significant hub of intellectual pursuits during the Carolingian era. The city, originally named Aachenan, boasting a history dating back to the Neolithic period, gained prominence as a Roman spa town renowned for its thermal springs. While some contemporaries compared Aachen to a new Rome, it did not quite rival the grandeur of cities like Constantinople or Baghdad. A distinctive feature of Aachen was the palace complex commissioned by Charlemagne towards the late 8th century. This compound included various structures such as the imperial residence, council hall, treasury, throne room, gymnasium, barracks, and even a menagerie housing exotic animals. Moreover, the palace featured a bathing facility supplied by thermal springs, where Charlemagne enjoyed swimming while listening to readings or hosting lavish pool gatherings with his courtiers and guards. The Palatine Chapel, the only remaining edifice from the palace complex, has undergone multiple renovations over the years, blending classical Byzantine and Baroque architectural elements. Inside, the chapel is adorned with vibrant mosaics and marble columns sourced from various regions. Within the chapel sits Charlemagne's elaborate marble throne, steeped in biblical imagery and believed to have been fashioned from materials brought from the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. This throne served as the coronation seat for subsequent Holy Roman emperors and was immortalised in a painting by the French artist Ray Palm. In this painting, period standing at a respectful distance from Charlemagne's throne, symbolising his reverence for the historical figure. Despite the centuries that have passed and the alterations made to the palace complex, the Palatine Chapel remains a testament to the cultural and architectural accomplishments of the Carolingian Renaissance. The Carolingian palaces, exemplified by the majestic complex at Aachen, were not only constructed as defensive fortifications, but also to inspire a sense of wonder and admiration. With an estimated 150 of these palaces scattered across the empire, along with 700 imperial estates, they served as crucial sources of wealth and power for the Carolingian family. Despite Napoleon's audacious act of appropriating columns from the chapel at Argento, France, the majority of the stolen riches were eventually returned following his defeat. It is imperative to correct the misconception that the Carolingians were solely focused on fortifications and laying the groundwork for feudalism, as their architectural endeavours were multifaceted and served various purposes. Many of the Carolingian palaces were strategically located near waterways like the Rhine and Danube, allowing for easy access by boat and facilitating transportation across the territories north of the Alps. The palace at Ingelheim held a special significance as the summer residence for Charlemagne's successors, with Aachen reserved for winters, and its grand hall adorned with depictions of both ancient and Carolingian heroes. Among these palaces, Aachen stood out as the most prominent during Charlemagne's reign as emperor, functioning as the central hub for administrative matters, issuing decrees, and overseeing the governance of his vast empire, which spanned approximately 450,000 square miles. Charlemagne's reign over Western Europe, uniting regions such as France, Germany, Austria, and parts of Eastern Europe under a single imperial rule, marked a level of cohesion not seen for centuries. The traditional belief that the Carolingian Empire directly led to the establishment of feudalism, creating distinct social classes, has faced challenges from modern historical perspectives. These new interpretations suggest that feudalism did not emerge immediately under Carolingian rule, but rather evolved gradually through complex societal transformations and interactions over time. The transition that began with the Carolingians reached its peak in the 11th century, marking the beginning of the High Middle Ages. During this period, powerful ruling families in urban centres and emerging entities such as guilds, universities, and chivalric orders gained significant influence, leading to a decentralisation of power. These groups played a crucial role in shaping the societal norms and structures that are often associated with the medieval era. While there is ongoing debate among scholars about whether the Carolingian Empire leaned more towards ancient or medieval characteristics, there is a wealth of knowledge available about this fascinating period in history. Examining the nobility of this time, it is evident that a large portion held the title of counts, a tradition that originated in the Merovingian era. These counts were primarily responsible for administrative tasks in governing various counties, some of which were situated within the imperial court. The empire comprised around 600 counties, with well-established ones boasting towns, villages, and religious institutions. Initially, counties were not passed down through inheritance, with counts serving until their death before passing on their lands and titles to their heirs. However, this practice became more entrenched in the later part of the 9th and 10th centuries. During Charlemagne's rule, counts were appointed and could have their positions revoked at the emperor's discretion. Alongside the counts were the missi dominici, imperial envoys who oversaw legal matters, took oaths on behalf of the emperor, and inspected the counties. rise of frontier lords who governed the borderlands with their heavily fortified territories reflected the ongoing expansion that characterized Charlemagne's rule. Towards the end of the Carolingian era, dukes, who often had jurisdiction over border regions, emerged as prominent figures. During Charlemagne's time, authority was more based on personal favour, influence, and wealth, rather than formal titles, indicating the early stages of feudalism, where the concept of vassalage had not fully developed yet. During the reign of Charlemagne, a notable transformation occurred in the social structure and governance of the Carolingian Empire. While the feudal system of vassalage, where land was exchanged for military service, was not widespread at that time, Charlemagne implemented a new system that mandated both the wealthy and the less affluent to pledge loyalty and serve in the military. This reshuffling of social classes, along with the adoption of peasant levies, laid the groundwork for a more structured system of patronage. Despite some remnants of the previous Merovingian leader-follower relationships, Charlemagne's centralized authority and administrative methods, inspired by Roman governance, challenged the traditional power dynamics of the era. Charlemagne's ambitious initiatives were not confined to secular affairs, but also encompassed spiritual and religious matters. Despite the customary division between secular and religious authority, Charlemagne delved into ecclesiastical affairs to tackle what he perceived as a waning religious fervour and discipline. Through the convening of religious councils, the establishment of new liturgical norms, and the imposition of regulations for monastic communities, Charlemagne endeavoured to raise the quality and standardise the religious practices of the empire. By overseeing the delivery and content of sermons, Charlemagne aimed to consolidate the Catholic Church and offer consistent spiritual guidance to his people. His reforms and interventions were driven by a commitment to revitalise religious purity and cohesion within his realm. The conversation then transitioned to delve into the practical challenges faced by commoners within the empire, particularly those engaged in physical labour. These hard-working individuals formed the backbone of the empire's population, devoting their time to working in the fields with basic tools like the plough made of wood. Despite advancements such as the iron plough and watermill, their adoption was slow, and historians of that era often fail to recognise their potential to revolutionise the European economy. Furthermore, the discussion touched upon the difficulties encountered in animal rearing, emphasising the relatively smaller size of livestock compared to those in Roman Gaul. The appeal of participating in military expeditions under Charlemagne was highlighted, showcasing the benefits that could be reaped from successful invasions and sieges. However, the looming risks of facing raiders, diseases, and natural disasters remained a constant concern, underscoring the uncertainties and dangers that individuals faced during that epoch. The complex power dynamics at the higher levels of society were juxtaposed with the simple yet arduous rural life, where the ability to provide sustenance held significant importance. The staple diet, primarily consisting of bread made from various grains, sustained these diligent workers as they laboured tirelessly to make a living in a world filled with opportunities as well as dangers. In an era when vast expanses of Europe were cloaked in dense forests, the Carolingians were distinguished by their possession of sprawling estates that cultivated a variety of crops and yielded sought-after products like wine, honey, and spices. Abundant resources like honey, fruits, charcoal, lumber, meats, and pelts were not confined solely to those living on these estates. They could also be sourced from the nearby woodlands. lifestyle within the non-fortified wooden villas and villages fostered a strong sense of self-sufficiency and communal ownership, characterised by a semi-nomadic inclination attributed to the threat of natural disasters and exploitation in rural areas. This transient way of life meant people did not settle in one place for prolonged periods, understanding that death was inevitable, while taxes were not always forthcoming. Taxation in the Carolingian era centred around levies on specific tools and the use of infrastructure, including taxes on wheels, bridges and ports, with additional revenue generated through fines, gifts and tolls. This tax system, though less intricate than the Roman administrative structure with its formidable standing army, advanced trade network and well-maintained infrastructure, was still effective in bolstering the treasury. The power dynamics in the Carolingian countryside were relatively informal, with villages interconnected through patronage systems overseen by local priests and estate managers. Despite the reforms spearheaded by Charlemagne, the influence of imperial figures like the Count and the Mrs. Dominicus was predominantly indirect. These officials were often on the move, attending court ceremonies, fulfilling official obligations, or partaking in social events like hunts and feasts. The society of the Carolingian epoch, as depicted by contemporary chroniclers, showcased a more hands-off approach, where reforms and imperial authority were not as direct as initially envisioned. The accounts provided by these writers underscored a decentralised system, highlighting the interdependence of rural communities within patronage networks, where local priests and estate managers played pivotal roles. During the reign of Charlemagne, the focus was not solely on economic and legal changes, but also on significant progress in education and culture. In the city of Aachen, he established a prestigious palace school that attracted scholars from various corners of Europe to teach a wide array of subjects, ranging from Latin grammar to rhetoric and logic. This groundbreaking initiative played a crucial role in sparking the Carolingian Renaissance, a period of renewed interest in intellectual pursuits and cultural achievements that aimed to preserve classical texts and inspire advances in art and architecture. Moreover, Charlemagne was a key figure in promoting the spread of Christianity throughout his vast empire. He actively supported the growth of monasticism, which proved to be vital in preserving knowledge and promoting education during the turbulent early Middle Ages. Through close collaboration with the Pope, Charlemagne worked to strengthen the Church's influence and control over religious matters within his territories. By striving to unify the Christian faith under his rule, he successfully converted numerous Germanic tribes and oversaw the establishment of churches and dioceses across his realm. In summary, the era of Charlemagne was characterised by a comprehensive set of reforms that encompassed economic, legal, educational and religious aspects, laying the foundation for the prosperity and cultural revival of the Carolingian Empire. His legacy as a ruler who prioritised the pursuit of knowledge, implemented standardised currency, and promoted the dissemination of Christianity had a lasting impact on European history and paved the way for the development of medieval society. During the Carolingian era, the regulations and guidelines for managing land and resources, as outlined in the Capitulary of 802, encompassed a broad array of subjects, including financial tracking, animal care, and the provision of logistical support. There was a notable emphasis on promoting basic hygiene practices, like hand washing, to prevent the spread of diseases among those involved in food preparation. Additionally, the capitularies addressed the importance of maintaining clean living conditions and proper waste disposal methods to ensure the well-being of the population. However, subsequent capitularies issued by Charlemagne revealed a sense of frustration over the lack of adherence to his decrees by the subjects of his empire, indicating the challenges of enforcing regulations in a vast and diverse realm. Scholars of the Carolingian period noted that the primary focus of the capitularies was on establishing organisational structures and lines of authority rather than getting into intricate procedures. They highlighted the significance of counts and may rejecting bribes, conducting court proceedings in appropriate settings, and refraining from disrupting legal hearings for hunting expeditions. These efforts aimed to encourage the noble followers to act as agents of the king and uphold specific codes of conduct, emphasising the importance of maintaining order and justice within the realm. By reinforcing these principles, Charlemagne sought to strengthen the unity and stability of his empire through the implementation of clear and consistent laws. Charlemagne's strategy in disseminating capitularies leaned towards persuasion rather than authoritarianism, seeking to cultivate a sense of loyalty and responsibility among his followers as representatives of the crown. His reign saw the issuance of around 80 capitularies, underscoring his commanding authority in comparison to both predecessors and successors. In contrast, the capitulary of Lancia was more comprehensive, addressing a wide range of land management issues such as sales, leases, inheritances, and inventory management, reflecting the evolving needs of the Carolingian society. Despite the challenges and complexities of governance during this period, the meticulous attention to detail and the implementation of strategic policies contributed to the overall progress and development of the empire. The dearth of comprehensive documentation during the Merovingian era may have exacerbated the prevailing challenges, contributing to the deepening poverty in rural regions. A considerable aspect of this poverty stemmed from the emphasis on specialised goods, which posed risks when vital resources were channeled towards non-essential commodities, leaving societies susceptible to crises, while specialisation was a pivotal aspect of more advanced economies. It emerged as a consequence of the heightened agricultural productivity during that period. Unlike the expansive Mediterranean trade network that thrived under the Romans for centuries, trade during the Carolingian era was more constrained, given the shorter time frame the Carolingians had to establish and expand their trade routes. Charlemagne adeptly navigated the intricate landscape of his time, achieving unprecedented success when compared to his medieval counterparts. In the chronicles of his rule, his personal traits were intricately interwoven, providing insight into the motivations driving his decisions. His biographer Einhard intricately portrayed Charlemagne as a commanding figure, marked by his formidable stature, robust physique, and remarkable appearance characterised by piercing eyes and dazzling white hair. Despite his imposing physical presence, Charlemagne exuded an aura of dignity and magnificence. Ultimately, Charlemagne efficiently utilised his resources and skills, accomplishing extraordinary feats during his lifetime and solidifying his position as a towering figure of the medieval epoch. Charlemagne, revered as a formidable and imposing ruler, exuded a commanding aura that was reflected not only in his actions but also in his physical appearance. The debate surrounding his exact height, which was estimated to fall between 5'9" and 6'5", only added to his enigmatic persona. As he aged, Charlemagne, despite his reputation for moderation, developed a noticeable protruding belly, possibly a consequence of his penchant for lavish feasting and indulgence. His tall frame was further accentuated by by the opulent attire he donned, often embellished with intricate details and complemented by his iconic bushy moustache. Although he typically favoured understated clothing, he understood the power of sartorial splendour during imperial ceremonies, using it as a tool to assert his dominance and authority. The opulent garments that Charlemagne wore during extravagant feasts and grand ceremonies served as more than just mere fashion choices. They played a pivotal role in upholding his imperial image and fostering loyalty among the Frankish nobility through peaceful means. By orchestrating elaborate hunts, he provided the nobles with a non-violent and engaging pastime, effectively channeling their energies away from the battlefield and towards more leisurely pursuits. Charlemagne's prowess in hunting not only entertained the nobility, but also bolstered the Franks' reputation as unparalleled hunters during his reign, underscoring his ability to maintain control and unity within his vast realm. Through these strategic displays of extravagance and leisure, Charlemagne adeptly navigated the complexities of power dynamics, solidifying his position as a revered and respected leader among his people. During the era of Charlemagne, sport hunting was a popular pastime that ranked closely behind noble gatherings as a source of entertainment and respite from the intense political and religious discussions of the time. Charlemagne himself was renowned for his enthusiasm for hunting, swimming, and horseback riding, activities that set him apart even among the energetic Franks of his court. If the Franks were to draw a comparison, they might have likened him to the watermill and breeches, a nod to his constant travels that covered vast distances each year. Despite his busy and active lifestyle, Charlemagne adeptly juggled a multitude of responsibilities, from leading military campaigns to presiding over important assemblies, hosting lavish feasts, and overseeing his expansive territories. He also took great care in fulfilling his role as a nurturing patriarch, raising his sons and daughters with meticulous attention to ensure they remained close-knit, whether at home or on the road with him. While his decision to keep his daughters sheltered from the public eye sparked rumours, it may have been a strategic move to prevent potential family complications, although some daughters did have children out of wedlock and still received unwavering love and support from their father. Having been married 5 times and maintaining relationships with several concubines, Charlemagne fathered a total of 18 children, indicating that celibacy was not a virtue he held in high regard. Despite only one legitimate surviving son, Charlemagne's lineage endured through influential dynasties such as the Holy Roman Empire and France, with prestigious families like the Ottonians, Luxembourg, and Habsburgs, tracing their ancestry directly back to him. This lasting impact earned Charlemagne the revered title of the Father of Europe, solidifying his lasting importance in the annals of European history. Charlemagne's enigmatic essence remains a multifaceted puzzle, a tapestry woven with a contrast of personality traits and deeds that defined his remarkable life. One prevailing theme that defined the fabric of his being was his insatiable restlessness, evident in both his military conquests and administrative endeavours. The relentless vigour that drove Charlemagne was palpable in his constant motion, with rare moments of repose and an unwavering dedication to his duties. Often, the stillness of the night was shattered by bursts of productivity, whether he was engrossed in writing or deliberating strategies with his trusted advisors. This work ethic, bordering on obsession, echoed the unconventional methods of other revered leaders such as Winston Churchill, showcasing Charlemagne's prowess in diplomacy and governance. As Charlemagne approached the twilight of his life, signs of his mortality began to cast a sombre shadow over his once indomitable spirit. Despite his meticulous preparations for succession and efforts to ensure the stability of his empire, the inevitability of his own mortality weighed heavily on his conscience. In his final days, amidst ominous signs like eclipses and the grip of illness, Charlemagne faced his mortality with a solemn acceptance. His passing on that fateful January morning marked the end of a significant era, leaving behind a legacy that transcended borders and cultures, resonating across time. The poignant image of his trembling hand and the profound words uttered in his last breath encapsulated the essence of a man whose unwavering spirit had left an indelible mark on history. The mourning that swept across lands following Charlemagne's departure reflected the profound impact of his rule, as people from distant corners grieved the loss of a towering figure. His swift funeral and burial in the Aachen Palace Chapel symbolised the end of an epoch and the beginning of a new chapter for his realm. The sorrow that reverberated through different regions and beliefs underscored the immense magnitude of Charlemagne's legacy, uniting diverse populations in a shared sense of loss. As the sun set on Charlemagne's illustrious reign, his memory continued to shine brightly, serving as a beacon for future generations navigating the complexities of history. The passing of Charlemagne left a profound void in the noble classes, spanning across generations. The younger members, who had grown up under his guidance, were particularly struck by the loss of their revered leader. As news of Charles's death reverberated throughout the world, an outpouring of grief ensued, with countless individuals offering up prayers for his soul to find eternal peace in the kingdom of heaven. Despite the often tumultuous political landscape of his reign, Charlemagne's final act of generosity, in which he bequeathed his considerable wealth and extensive collection of books to the church for charitable endeavours, underscored the depth of his piety and faith-driven convictions. With all of his legitimate offspring having passed away, save for Louis, the unity of the kingdom now rested squarely on the shoulders of his sole surviving heir. The legacy of Charlemagne stood as a testament to his unparalleled leadership, with the realization dawning that it might be a considerable stretch of time before another ruler of his exceptional calibre would emerge. Our focus now shifts towards Louis the Pious, who stepped into the role of leadership following in the footsteps of his illustrious father. Embracing the foundations laid down by Charlemagne, Louis adeptly navigated the complexities of feudalism while upholding the established sources of authority. Despite his complicated marital history, which included multiple wives and concubines, Louis found himself with only one legitimate male heir who was poised to inherit the throne. The succession process was hastened due to the premature deaths of Louis' brothers, ensuring that the kingdom remained under the unified rule of the royal lineage. Known by various epithets such as Louis the Fair or Louis the Dire, he had been groomed from infancy to bear the weight of his esteemed ancestry and the expectations of his subjects. The stage was thus set for Louis to prove himself a worthy successor to his father, with early signs pointing towards a promising reign in the making. The name Louis has a rich history, with his origins stemming from both Latin and Germanic languages. It was actually a Latinized version of the Germanic name Ludwig. This name gained significance as it was associated with the first Merovingian monarch, who achieved the remarkable feat of unifying the Franks. He assumed the throne at a remarkably young age of 2 or 3, under the guidance and authority of his father Charlemagne. Charlemagne implemented an innovative governance approach by entrusting entire regions like Aquitaine, Italy, and Francia to his legitimate heirs, including Louis. This unique system allowed the younger generation to efficiently govern their territories, while also fostering a strong bond with their father through collaborative endeavours and the honing of their skills in both warfare and statecraft. Lewis's journey into leadership began when he was merely 4 years old, establishing his royal court in Aquitaine. At such a tender age, he embraced his role as a burgeoning monarch, immersing himself in the local customs and administrative complexities of his realm. A noteworthy display of diplomacy was witnessed when, 4 years later, Lewis visited his father clad in Basque attire, a gesture aimed at connecting with his subjects and cultivating goodwill among the populace. Despite his diplomatic overtures, there were occasions where Lewis had to quell rebellions within the expanding Carolingian Empire. Nevertheless, he showcased his military acumen by orchestrating successful campaigns, most notably the capture of Barcelona in the Iberian Peninsula. His strategic brilliance shone through in instances like outmanoeuvring a potential ambush at the Pines mountain pass, showcasing a level of military prowess that even surpassed that of his father in certain engagements. Lewis, an intellectual figure who actively engaged with scholars at the emperor's court, gained recognition for his introspective nature and profound contemplation on the essence of rulership. In stark contrast to his father, Lewis the Pious is not celebrated for his leadership skills, but rather for his virtuous character, which seemed to lack the assertiveness and vigour required for effective governance. Historical accounts portray him as well-intentioned, yet lacking the practical wisdom to select competent advisors, leading to a tragic outcome in his reign. The prevailing perspective on Lewis the Pious implies that he was deficient in the decisiveness, practical acumen, and political astuteness exemplified by renowned historical figures like Charlemagne and Clovis. While he possessed a strong moral compass, it is crucial to acknowledge that this interpretation is influenced by traditional narratives. A more nuanced comprehension of this supposedly tragic ruler emerges when examining the events of Lewis the Pious's rule, providing insights into the early decline of the Carolingian Empire. When Lewis ascended to the throne at the age of 36, he initially projected an image of strength, seriousness, and devoutness. Described as profoundly religious and seldom displaying levity, he was likened to solemn figures such as Stannis Baratheon from Game of Thrones. Despite his admiration for political luminaries like Charlemagne, Lewis demonstrated little interest in preserving pagan relics or beliefs, signalling his indifference towards maintaining a polytheistic heritage. Lewis exhibited a distinctive perspective that significantly shaped the way he interacted with his relatives, a number of whom were exiled to monasteries during his reign. While officially their banishment was attributed to misconduct, there is speculation that Lewis was primarily concerned with safeguarding his own authority and preventing any potential threats to his rule. This cautious approach extended to his sisters and nieces, as Lewis took measures to ensure that any man marrying into the family would not pose a challenge to his leadership. Through his deliberate distancing from his deceased father and his unique treatment of his family members, Lewis curated a singular image for his reign. In the year 814, inspectors uncovered widespread oppression and corruption across the empire, shedding light on the challenges faced during Lewis's rule. During this historical period, a revised version of the Royal Frankish Annal was compiled, shedding light on Charlemagne's military setbacks and reports of misconduct within his court. These accounts were interwoven with political writings that critiqued the behaviour of the ruling elite. Notably, Charlemagne himself emphasised the importance of a ruler's ethical conduct, Louis seemed to adopt. Serving as the sub-king of Aquitaine, Louis collaborated with the Benedictine monk, known as the Second Benedict, to introduce religious reforms that left a lasting imprint on Christian monasticism. Louis's commitment to religious reform extended beyond Aquitaine to the wider Carolingian Empire through the Synods of Aachen, which established comprehensive guidelines for monastic life and delineated the relationship between the monarchy and the church. Through these synods, Louis sought to uphold a moral standard and distinguish himself from the perceived failings of his family. However, despite his efforts to differentiate himself from his father, Louis's actions and reforms suggest that he may not have strayed as far from Charlemagne's legacy as he believed. Charlemagne's governance approach involved the assimilation of newly acquired regions such as Saxony by implementing similar administrative procedures. An example of this integration can be observed in the absorption of Saxony in the 10th century, which led to the emergence of 4 Holy Roman emperors from a Catholic lineage originating in Saxony. During his leadership at religious gatherings, Louis experienced a moment of deep introspection following a life-threatening incident on Holy Thursday. This event prompted Louis to devise a plan for the orderly succession of power known as the Ordono Imperi. The Ordono Imperi delineated Louis as the sub-king of Bavaria, designated Pepin as the sub-king of Aquitaine, and identified Lothair as the co-emperor and designated heir. Safeguards were put in place to ensure a smooth transfer of authority within the royal family in case of unexpected events. However, complexities arose with the implementation of the sub-king system, which represented an innovative approach to imperial governance. The success of this hierarchical structure was heavily reliant on Charlemagne's influence as the patriarch overseeing each sub-king. Despite the provisions outlined in the Ordono Imperi, challenges surfaced due to the complexities associated with the sub-king system. The effectiveness of the framework was intricately tied to Charlemagne's paternal authority. The traditional significance of venerating the paternal figure carried profound historical weight. The Ordono Imperi encountered hurdles due to the untested nature of the sub-king model and the substantial reliance placed on Charlemagne's paternal leadership. The uncertainty surrounding M's ability to maintain control over his brothers Pepin and Lais the German in the future posed a significant challenge that demanded careful consideration and strategic planning. The potential power struggle among the siblings could have far-reaching implications for the kingdom's stability and governance. Additionally, the exclusion of Lais, the nephew of P. Bernard, who held the title of sub-king of Italy, added another layer of complexity to the political landscape. Bernard's position as a sub-king, granted by Charlemagne with the condition of recognising Louis the Pus as his superior, further complicated the delicate balance of power within the realm. Amidst growing discontent among the nobility under Louis, the Peers' rule, and rumours of Bernard contemplating rebellion to establish autonomy, tensions escalated, prompting Louis the Pus to take decisive action to quell the brewing crisis. Reports of Bernard's alleged treason led to a dramatic turn of events as Bernard journeyed over the Alps to negotiate with his uncle in Chalon, only to face accusations and a staged trial in Aachen that ultimately resulted in his blinding. This harsh punitive measure, inspired by Byzantine practices, aimed to incapacitate Bernard and prevent him from further challenging the authority of the monarch. Tragically, just 2 days after being blinded, Bernard succumbed to his wounds, sparking outrage and condemnation among the populace. The untimely demise of Bernard, viewed as an inadvertent inadvertent execution not only stained the reputation of the monarch, but also disrupted the political landscape in unexpected ways. The act of kinslaying overshadowed Louis the Pus's religious reforms and his contemplation of the intricate dynamics between emperor, pope, and God, casting a shadow of doubt and mistrust over his reign. The repercussions of these events would reverberate throughout the kingdom, reshaping alliances and power dynamics for years to come. Upon ascending to power, Louis made the bold decision to send his siblings to live in monasteries, a strategic move to eliminate any potential threat to his reign, especially in the aftermath of his brother Bernard's assassination. However, as Louis's rule progressed, a significant change in his attitudes and behaviours began to emerge around 821 AD, approximately 8 years into his reign. Historian Rosamund McKittrick was quick to point out this remarkable transformation in Louis, noting his newfound display of compassion and leniency. Louis surprised many by pardoning individuals involved in conspiracies, even his own family members, and openly acknowledging his own wrongdoings, opting for self-imposed acts of repentance, a departure from the forced actions of leaders like Theodosius. The scene of Louis seeking forgiveness played out dramatically in Atene, with Pope Pascal there, and a congregation bearing witness to the emperor's plea for clemency. This act of contrition was deemed unexpected and out of character for someone of Charlemagne's stature to undertake willingly. A clear difference in behaviour between father and son was evident, with Louis's unwavering commitment to marital fidelity setting him apart. Unlike Charlemagne, Louis appeared to display a strong dedication to his spouse, with only a few exceptions. The death of his first wife likely weighed heavily on his conscience, possibly prompting him to seek redemption in the eyes of the divine. Eventually, Louis heeded the counsel of his advisors and agreed to a second marriage, with a grand ceremony held at the opulent palace of Acanto, select a new bride. This event marked a significant turning point in both Louis's personal life and his style of governance, signalling a departure from his previous strict approach to ruling as emperor. The enthralling tale unfolds with the introduction of the imperial tiara, a cherished tradition passed down through the generations of imperial clans from Byzantium to Moscow. The detailed account, preserved in the records of the Carolingians, though met with scepticism, offers a fascinating glimpse into the emperor's involvement in this elaborate spectacle. The narrative then shifts to the emperor's marriage to Judith, a woman of noble lineage from Almania, Germany. Judith's active role at court not only strengthened the bond between the dynasty and the Carolingians, but also solidified connections through her sister's marriage to Louis the German. The birth of Charles in 823 AD, the son of Judith, added a layer of complexity to the succession plan of Louis the P, leading to internal strife and power struggles within the royal family. As the story progresses, the tension escalates with Lothair and Pepin's plot against their father, Louis the P, supported by disgruntled aristocrats like Judith and Bernard of Septimania. Laire's ambition for power and Pepin's frustration with their father's interference in Aquitaine fueled their rebellion. In a strategic move in 830 AD, Pepin, with Laire's backing, captured their father during a military campaign in Brittany. Accusations of Judith's involvement with Bernard, believed to be Charles's biological father, added fuel to the fire, heightening the already charged atmosphere. The power struggle between ambitious heirs and scheming nobles reveals a web of deceit and manipulation, with the aristocracy vying to shape events for personal gain. Despite initial success in Lothair and Pepin's revolt, Louis the P managed to regain control by securing the support of Lothair and Louis the German. Promises of expanded territories and strategic alliances helped Louis solidify the loyalty of his offspring, thwarting the nobles' attempts to destabilize the dynasty. The complex power dynamics and shifting allegiances highlight the ongoing struggle for dominance and influence within the Carolingian domain, where familial relationships and political ambitions collide in a convoluted tapestry of intrigue and betrayal. After the rebellion was quelled and tensions within the empire subsided, Louis Theus worked diligently to restore order and mend relationships with Judith and Bernard. Both individuals were cleared of any wrongdoing, yet the imperial couple maintained a cautious distance from Bernard. When faced with the delicate task of dealing with his former adversaries, Louis the Pious opted for a forgiving approach, extending clemency to his sons and other co-conspirators. This diplomatic manoeuvring ultimately led to a relatively peaceful resolution. However, the calm was short-lived, as another uprising erupted 2 years later, originating from a disagreement between Louis the P and his son, Pepin. In response to the new rebellion, Louis the P mobilized his forces, only to face betrayal from his son, Louis the German, who joined forces with his siblings to challenge their father's rule. With Lothair also plotting against him, the emperor found himself in a precarious position. Tensions escalated further when a coalition, supported by Pope Gregory IV, confronted Louis the Pious in a tense standoff. Aware of his limited support, the emperor yielded to prevent unnecessary bloodshed, ensuring the safety of his family in the process. The dramatic events culminated at the infamous Field of Lies, where the emperor capitulated to the coalition's forces. This encounter soon became the stuff of legend, with tales of divine intervention and the earth supposedly swallowing up the guilty. Historian Courtney M. Booker's retelling of this episode draws parallels to German folklore, adding to the mystique surrounding Louis the Pious's eventual betrayal and downfall. As a result, the tumultuous era in the empire left a lasting legacy, serving as a cautionary tale for future generations about the perils of power, loyalty, and the repercussions of deceit. Deep within the vast caverns of the terrain, a legion of ancient warriors lay in a profound slumber. At specific intervals throughout the night, these formidable warriors would stir from their rest and ascend to the surface, embarking on a solemn journey across the expansive lands of the Oxenfeld in Hellas, under the command of Prince Charles. Travellers who had the misfortune of crossing paths with this spectral army spoke of being overwhelmed by the haunting wails of anguish that emanated from the warriors, their eerie cries only subsiding once they reached the outskirts of the unsettling terrain. Several months later, following a momentous encounter, Louis the Pious felt compelled to undergo a second public act of penance within the confines of a Benedictine monastery. This ceremonial ritual mirrored the initial penance he had undertaken, during which he had openly confessed his transgressions before clergy and nobles, including his son Ler. Ler, who had spent the summer immersed in the pursuits of hunting, suddenly found himself entwined in a web of familial and political strife, as his father tearfully revealed a litany of offences, such as disturbing the peace and flouting the established succession plan, all under the unwavering gaze of the Archbishop of Ron. In the ensuing rebellion, Ler, Pepin, and Louis, the German, banded together against their father, seizing upon the growing discontent among the nobility. The trial was not merely a Louis's shortcomings as a father, but also a condemnation of his failure as a son to the revered Charlemagne, whom he had sworn to protect. Steeped in religious symbolism, the proceedings were presided over by a council of esteemed clergymen, among them the Archbishop of Ron, emphasising the supremacy of the Church over the state. Louis the Pious's act of penance symbolised his formal relinquishment of power, serving as a poignant reminder of the Church's authority over the state, echoing the ancient customs of the Roman era. After swearing to dedicate the remaining years of his life to seeking redemption for himself and those he had wronged, an authority figure stood before a crowd, promising to make amends. The abdication of Louis the Pious, often seen as the Carolingian Empire's definitive crisis point, was believed to signal the impending demise of the empire. Nevertheless, modern historians hold a more nuanced view, pointing to the surprising chain of events that followed. Within a short span, as Louis faced challenges to his rule, there were attempts to persuade him to abandon his throne and take up a monastic life, a decision that would have effectively ended his political career. However, Louis resisted just long enough for his sons to start feuding among themselves, a dynamic he could always count on. At the same time, a group of loyalists, including his half-siblings, sister-in-law, and various nobles, worked in secret to restore the rightful emperor to power. Louis the Pious's sister-in-law, married to Louis the German, played a crucial role in bringing her husband back to his father's side, supported by her elder brother-in-law's efforts to assert control over his siblings. In a dramatic turn of events, Louis found himself compelled to reconcile with his father publicly, seeking forgiveness on bended knee. While the emperor was reinstated, his actions did not end there. Following his absolution by the Archbishop of Rome, Louis had him removed from his position by a council of his peers. However, he chose to spare his sons' possessions and titles, allowing each son to maintain control over their respective realms. It was evident that Louis had a deep love for his children, sometimes to his detriment. Nevertheless, over the years that followed, the emperor began to show favouritism towards his youngest son, Charles. Being too young to rebel against his father, Charles emerged as the only sibling who did not challenge him in the future. After the death of Pepin, the ruler of Aquitaine, the kingdom's nobles expected the throne to pass to Pepin II, Louis the Pious's grandson. Instead, Louis bypassed him in favour of Charles, granting him the crown of Aquitaine. While this decision upset the heir, the emperor also expanded his territories to appease his eldest son and successor. However, Louis the Pious did not extend similar gestures to Louis the German, leading to feelings of resentment from the latter. This sparked the final rebellion of Louis the Pious's reign, but due to Louis, the German's solo actions, and failure to rally adequate support, the revolt ultimately faltered. Despite encountering resistance from his sons and discontent among his subjects, Louis the Pious managed to achieve remarkable administrative accomplishments during his reign. His commitment to record-keeping surpassed even that of his predecessor, Charlemagne, with an impressive average of 19 charters and capitularies being produced each year, resulting in a total of around 500 documents. The imperial chancellery, under his direction, oversaw a team of skilled scribes, proficient in Tyrone shorthand, who were responsible for meticulously drafting these documents in the elegant Carolingian minuscule style commonly used for the capitularies. These decrees, structured into chapters, served to elucidate Louis's vision for the ministry, portraying his realm as the epitome of the Christian Empire. From Louis the Pious's viewpoint, effective governance of the Christian Empire necessitated a collaborative approach involving not just the emperor, but also various officials officials such as counts, bishops, and representatives of the divine. He underscored the significant authority and responsibility that accompanied the rule of the Christian Empire, underscoring the critical nature of cooperation in order to govern such an extensive territory successfully. The concept of the ministry, which was developed under his leadership, sought to bolster the unity and strength of the empire, reflecting his desire for a well-organised and well-managed realm. Despite facing challenges and rebellions, Louis the Pious's focus on administrative efficiency and shared leadership had a lasting impact on the Carolingian Empire. The authority vested in the capitularies played a crucial role in defining the duties of imperial inspectors, empowering them to oversee the activities of counts effectively. Under the administration of Louis the Pious, the concept of power sharing and connecting authority with accountability laid the groundwork for two acts of penance. It was noteworthy that the emperor could potentially face dismissal from his position if he failed to fulfill his obligations. Despite facing uprisings from his own children, Louis the Pious approached his responsibilities with great seriousness, labouring assiduously to maintain peace in an empire besieged by various frontier factions. The tribal Danes, in conjunction with the Swedes and Norwegians, collectively known as the Norsemen, were speakers of Old Norse and belonged to a Germanic lineage distinct from that of the Saxons and Franks. Their defensive structures in what is now Schleswig-Holstein highlighted their unique cultural identity. As Christianity spread, Scandinavia emerged as one of the final bastions of Germanic beliefs before the area underwent Christianization. The Norsemen earned a reputation for sowing discord across Europe, contributing to the Carolingian Empire's decline. During the early Viking era, Louis the Pious's involvement in Danish power struggles left a lasting impact on public sentiment. By supporting Harold Clack, who embraced baptism and permitted Frankish missionaries to expand their reach, Louis influenced the trajectory of events in the region. Missionaries faced obstacles, including tales of encountering mythical, dog-headed men in Denmark. Louis the Pious's actions against the Norsemen and his dealings with Harold Clack significantly shaped perceptions of his reign and solidified the Norsemen's portrayal in historical chronicles. The narrative delves into the evolving perspectives of the Danes and other Scandinavian groups during a period of profound historical change. The abbot's newfound reverence for animals and settlements, attributing them with souls of value to be safeguarded, sheds light on the incomplete comprehension of these societies, despite their participation in North Sea commerce. The Norsemen's accumulation of riches through increasingly aggressive means propelled them from obscurity to notoriety. Collaborations, such as the one between Louis the Pious and Danish King Harold, set a precedent for future interactions with the Norsemen and other bordering communities that posed threats to the realm's stability, many of which had been subdued during the era of Charlemagne. Louis the Pious' reign marked the end of a phase of Frankish expansion that had been unfolding since the waning years of Charlemagne's rule. In contrast to his father's more dynamic leadership style, Louis the Pious ruled with a more cautious approach, yet he effectively maintained the empire's territorial unity until his passing, a significant achievement. His rule was characterized by acts of kindness and hesitation, interspersed with glimpses of a personality reminiscent of Charlemagne, showcasing the complexities of his governance. The decline of the Carolingian Empire saw a power struggle among Louis' sons, with El's bid for control met with opposition from his brothers, Louis the German and Charles the Bald. The ensuing internal strife was not an inevitable outcome, but rather a result of long-standing familial rivalries and ambitions that boiled over due to a lack of consensus on power sharing within the dynasty. The foundation for discord was laid by the actions of the aging Louis. The pious, underscoring the intricate dynamics of royal relationships and power structures, motivated by his desire to establish a lasting legacy for Charles the Bald, and to occasionally reprimand his other sons by limiting their future power and territories, Louis the Pious orchestrated the development of a series of 5 imperial partition plans spanning from 829 to 839. With the rise of Charles the Bald to the throne, Louis' nephew Pepin II, who had been overlooked as the ruler of Aquitaine in favour of Charles, saw an opportunity to assert his claim to the crown. The ensuing chaos, marked by internal family disputes and struggles for dominance, culminated in the decisive Battle of Fontano in 841 AD, which involved all 4 contenders from the Carolingian lineage. This pivotal confrontation left a lasting mark on Frankish history, even though exact details regarding the participants and casualties remain vague, with contemporary records describing its unprecedented violence and aftermath. Engelbert, a courageous Frankish warrior poet who fought alongside Louis, immortalised the tragic events of the Battle of Fontano in an elegiac work that lamented the betrayals and familial conflicts that defined the conflict. Through his poetic retelling of the bloodshed and chaos on the battlefield, he portrayed a grim scene where seasoned fighters met their demise, leaving behind grieving family members and comrades. Composed in Latin, his elegy, acclaimed as a pinnacle of the Carolingian cultural renaissance, skillfully combined various stylistic elements to convey the brutality and devastation of the clash. It vividly illustrated the violation of Christian principles amid the carnage, infused with a perception of divine intervention shielding Louis amidst the tumultuous battle. The amalgamation of mythological aspects drawn from the Roman, Germanic and biblical traditions came together in a unique piece of art that was clearly influenced by Frankish culture and creativity. While large-scale battles reminiscent of Fono were not frequent during that time, conflicts within dynasties were typically resolved through coercion rather than direct confrontation. However, the aftermath of Fali painted a different picture, with the defeated lair resorting to raiding vulnerable settlements, resembling a desperate Alsatian scavenger searching for resources. Lair had a reputation for his ruthless pragmatism, resorting to any means necessary, including manipulating his relationships, even with his father, and supporting the Stahlinger rebellion in Saxony. The Stahlinger uprising, a significant event between the 6th and 10th centuries in European history, was a rare populist revolt driven by common people aiming to regain their rights and privileges lost after Charlemagne's conquest. Similarly, in the 10th century, the expansion of Christianity by the Ottonian dynasty beyond the Elbe triggered a comparable revolt, echoing the circumstances of the Stahlinger rebellion. Despite the Saxon origins of the Ottonian rulers, they swiftly and brutally suppressed the Stahlinger revolt. In 843 AD, the Carolingians mediated a truce that resulted in the Treaty of Verdun, officially establishing the tripartite division of the empire and the renaming of the constituent kingdoms: West Francia, governed by Charles the Bald, France; East Francia, under Lais the German, Germany; and Middle Francia, under Lot. This treaty laid the foundation for future conflicts among these nations, with Pepin II, the nephew of the ruling brothers, facing severe consequences. Initially overseeing parts of Aquitaine under Charles the Bold's rule, Pepin II was eventually completely sidelined from the family's political affairs, in a manner reminiscent of the legendary adventures of Beowulf. Pepin II took a bold step by embracing the customs of the Norse after managing to escape from a monastery where he had been banished, a decision that further distanced him from the Carolingian family, leading to his exclusion from their gatherings. The Treaty of Verdun marked the official end of Leir's reign as emperor in all but name, signifying the disintegration of the Frankish subkingdoms. As each new kingdom emerged, they gained independence and developed a unique identity, yet the idea of a unified Carolingian Empire persisted. This shift continued a trend that had started during the reign of Ls the P, when the imperial envoys, known as Mi Dominici, ceased being dispatched to the increasingly self-governing sub-kingdoms. In every realm, one of the emperor's sons ascended to the throne, surrounded by a network of palaces, estates, and local alliances forged through marriages and the granting of privileges and benefices. Unlike the ancient Roman emperors, the Aeon emperors did not maintain a standing army. Delegating power to subordinate sub-kings was a pragmatic response to the vast expanse of the Carolingian Empire. However, this arrangement carried the inherent risk that whenever Ls the P intervened in the affairs of one of his sons' kingdoms, it could incite a rebellion. During this epoch, both Carolingian monarchs and nobles were primarily driven by self-interest. Kings sought increased autonomy or coveted the illustrious crown of Charlemagne, while nobles yearned for expanded privileges, larger landholdings, and access to the individual who could bestow these benefits upon them. Often, this benefactor was the king, leading many nobles to become dependent on the monarchy. This era marked a transitional phase where the foundations of feudalism were just beginning to take shape. The empire's nobles went by various names such as Fideles, Puentes, Illustres, Proceres, and Vassi Dominici, alongside formal titles like dukes, counts, and marcher lords, laying the groundwork for feudalism. However, there were notable distinctions between the nobles of this period and those of the later Middle Ages. Carolingian vassi, including those holding the title of counts, did not always have direct ownership of land. Some remained in close proximity to the Carolingian dynasty, only venturing out for specific missions on their behalf. Moreover, for those who did oversee estates, these lands were granted as benefices rather than hereditary fiefs, indicating that they were not permanent holdings. In the 9th century, a significant transformation in power dynamics unfolded as benefices evolved into authoritative positions, leading to complex challenges in displacing counts and dukes from their established territories. This shift can be traced back to earlier eras, with scholars drawing parallels between the Merovingian and Carolingian periods, particularly in the composition and structure of the nobility. A conventional belief was that the Carolingians reshaped the aristocratic hierarchy by bestowing titles and lands upon mounted warriors. However, recent studies indicate that many Merovingian lineages successfully maintained their influence by adapting ownership structures, underscoring a trend where powerful families preserved and expanded their control. The Carolingian nobility's reliance on mounted warfare necessitated both substantial resources and specialized training, as evidenced by their rigorous military exercises and strategic maneuvers. The efforts made by Charlemagne's descendants to legitimize their authority over the displaced Merovingians underscored the importance of demonstrating their competence in governing the Frankish realm effectively. During the 9th century, uprisings in Frankish territories frequently stemmed from familial disputes, underscoring the significance of having a descendant of Charlemagne as the reigning monarch. The period of relative stability post the Treaty of Verdun marked a departure from earlier conflicts, signalling a more structured framework that, while not entirely eradicating tensions, mitigated the levels of violence significantly. To foster unity within the Carolingian domains, assemblies were convened to settle disputes, find common ground, and forge new agreements. Between 843 and 887 AD, approximately 70 such gatherings took place, resembling familial counselling sessions aimed at nurturing cohesion and collaboration within the ruling elite. In the realm of the royal siblings, it was crucial that the bonds they shared were authentic and not built on deceit. As time passed, Lehr found himself reflecting on the mysterious behaviour that had characterised their interactions with each other and their father over the past decade. While the malevolent influences that once clouded their relationships seemed to have dissipated, it was clear that their cunning nature remained intact. They now engaged in a more subtle game, all with the shared ambition of reviving Charlemagne's empire. The family saga that unfolded revealed numerous instances of manipulation and coercion as they pursued this common goal, showing that the desire to emulate their ancestors' grandeur was a driving force for Lehr and his descendants. In the heart of Middle Francia, Lothair held the title of emperor for 12 years, overseeing a realm facing internal strife that led to his division into two factions. To manage the governance of Italy, Lothair appointed his son Louis, also known as Louis the Younger, as co-emperor and king of Italy. Louis the Younger's reign coincided with renewed Sahin invasions into Italy, with the Saracen incursions posing a significant threat alongside the well-known Viking raids of the era. The term Saracen was broadly used to describe Muslims, particularly those from North Africa. In 846 AD, Rome was once again targeted by the invaders, but the city was saved by its resilient Aurelian walls, preventing a humiliating defeat for the Christian realm. Following the invasion, Saracen captives were forced into labour, contributing to the construction of the Leonine walls that reinforced Rome's defences. This event highlighted the need for self-sufficiency, prompting the papal authorities to acknowledge the importance of standing independently without relying on Carolingian support. Lehr, in his advancing age, made a delayed journey to Italy after quelling a rebellion in Provence and withstanding Viking attacks in Fria. His visit marked his final trip to the region as he faced deteriorating circumstances. In 855 AD, Aller, nearing the age of his father, R the P, divided his lands among his sons, effectively dissolving the unwieldy kingdom of Middle Francia. Following Louis III's reign, his oldest son ascended to the throne as the nominal emperor, inheriting the title and becoming the king of Italy. Louis's younger sons, Lotharing and Charles, were granted the remaining territories to govern. Charles, also known as Charles of Provence, had his lands partitioned between him and his brother due to his youth at the time of assuming the throne. Charles of Provence, during his brief rule spanning less than a decade, failed to leave a significant mark on the Carolingian Empire. Despite his territories being located in the southern regions, they were constantly under threat from Viking raids. The Norse invaders possessed shallow longboats that allowed them to navigate both rivers and open waters with ease, making them formidable opponents for the Carolingian forces. Conversely, Lothair II's reign was filled with notable events and challenges. He ruled over a realm that would later be named La Ringia, encompassing the traditional heartland of the Carolingian dynasty, including the prestigious city of Aachen. Lothair Charles the Bald and Lothair the German, who plotted to seize his lands. Additionally, Lothair too encountered difficulties in his marriage, as his wife, Bga, was unable to bear him an heir. The strict monogamous customs of the time prevented Lothair too from taking another wife or concubine to secure the succession. Instead, he had a mistress named Waller who bore him children. To resolve this predicament, Lothair too attempted to annul his marriage by accusing Bga of various offences and subjecting her to a trial by ordeal, a common medieval practice used to determine guilt or innocence through divine intervention. These ordeals often involved perilous tests like fatal duels, immersion in water or boiling oil, and walking on hot coals. Lothair II's actions shed light on the complex and often harsh realities of medieval marital and legal traditions. Trials by ordeal held significant weight in medieval society as a means to determine guilt or innocence. The case of Teberga, wife of Leir II, serves as a prime example of this practice. She bravely faced a trial involving boiling water and miraculously emerged unharmed, thereby proving her innocence. Despite some skepticism surrounding the verdict, Leir II ultimately compromised to ensure his children's inheritance. The intervention of the Pope added a layer of complexity to the situation, prompting Teberga to seek refuge with her husband's uncle, Charles the Bald. The tension escalated when Leir II faced potential excommunication for defying the Pope's mandates. Although a journey to reconcile with the Pope seemed promising, tragedy struck as Leir II fell ill and tragically passed away on his return journey. This event raised doubts regarding the legitimacy of his children with Wallada, sparking contentious disputes over his estates and titles among his relatives. The subsequent division of the Carolingian Empire in 870 AD marked a crucial turning point in power dynamics within the region. Simultaneously, Louis the Younger, Leir II's brother, focused on reclaiming control over southern Italy from the Saracens, missing an opportunity to secure a portion of Lotharingia. Louis' intricate dealings with the Byzantine Emperor further complicated the political landscape. With support from Emperor Basil II's fleet, Louis successfully conquered Bari, garnering attention from the Byzantine Empire. Tensions escalated as the Byzantine Emperor questioned Louis' claim to the title of Emperor of the Romans, drawing comparisons to Charlemagne's legacy. In response, Louis staunchly defended the legitimacy of the Carolingian Empire, emphasizing the ongoing reign of Charlemagne's descendants. The power struggles and diplomatic intricacies between the Carolingian Empire and the Byzantine Empire underscored the complex political dynamics prevalent during this era. After Louis the Younger's turbulent reign, his daughter found herself confronted with the Salic law, which barred her from inheriting the throne. Plans had been put in place to designate Louis' cousin Charlemagne as the heir to the Kingdom of Italy, but Charles the Bold swooped in at the last minute, seizing power and claiming the imperial crown for himself. Despite facing initial resistance and lacking strong local support or political clout, Charles the Bold soon found himself entangled in conflicts with the emerging aristocracy, rebellions, rival claimants to the throne, and relentless Viking invasions in West Francia. In his struggle to consolidate his power, Charles the Bold had to make concessions to the clergy and nobility to maintain some semblance of authority. While not as adept in military matters as his predecessors, Charles the Bold showed a deep interest in intellectual pursuits, immersing himself in theology, geography, and the history of his own lineage. Despite his shortcomings, he worked tirelessly to navigate the tumultuous times and strengthen his hold over key territories like Bordeaux, which had been besieged by Vikings during the reign of his nephew Pepin. Throughout his rule, West Francia continued to face the brunt of Viking attacks and internal strife, posing ongoing challenges for Charles the Bald. The Vikings, initially focused on raiding rather than settling in Francia, soon found themselves extending their occupations due to the limitations on Frankish military responses during certain times of the year. Led by charismatic leaders like Ragnar, who bore a striking resemblance to the legendary Ragnar Lothbrok, the Norsemen left a lasting mark through their plundering escapades, notably sacking major cities such as Paris in 845 AD. This pivotal event not only brought about significant tribute payments from the Franks to the Vikings, but also showcased the immense wealth amassed by the raiders through their pillaging endeavours. To fulfil the hefty tribute demands, Charles the Bold had to deftly manoeuvre through the complex realms of diplomacy and governance, often relying on the support of dissatisfied nobles within his kingdom. Various challenges to his authority, such as the power struggle initiated by his brother Louis, the German, in 858 AD, and the populace's defiant stand against Viking invasions, put Charles's leadership skills to the test. The internal discord among the Frankish aristocracy further muddled the political landscape, overshadowing Charles's rule with uncertainty. Despite a myriad of internal strife and external threats, Charles the Bald gradually began to assert himself more prominently in the latter stages of his reign. While the tradition of paying tributes persisted, Charles also embarked on territorial expansions into regions like Lotharingia and Provence. This period marked a shift towards a more resolute leadership style as Charles sought to fortify his position and navigate the volatile political climate of Francia with a newfound determination. Merely around 500 administrative records have survived from the era of Charles the Bold, showcasing a stark contrast to the prolific documentation associated with many of his relatives. On average, only about 15 documents were generated each year during his reign. In a crucial decree issued by Charles the Bald, he mandated the formation of a cavalry unit, the construction of fortified bridges spanning rivers, and the prohibition of horse and weapon trading with the Norse. The issue of Frankish weaponry had been a concern for Charlemagne, who had previously prohibited the export of arms and armour due to the prevalent violence in the 9th century. The swords, axes, and chainmail produced by the Franks were highly regarded, thanks to their advanced iron manufacturing techniques and sophisticated workshops, some of which were housed in monastic establishments. By the end of the century, specific brand names had even been assigned to certain Frankish swords, highlighting their quality and craftsmanship. In addition to military matters, Charles the Bold also took an interest in other areas, such as currency, estate management, and the standardization of weights and measures, following in the footsteps of Charlemagne's reforms. There is a belief that the Carolingians had a tendency to ignore or dismantle unauthorized fortifications, leaving the countryside vulnerable to Viking raids during the Viking Age. Consequently, Frankish nobles began constructing fortifications and castles for defence, leading to the decentralisation of power and the rise of feudalism. Recent interpretations of Charles the Bald's directives to dismantle fortifications suggest that he was targeting temporary field defences rather than permanent strongholds, challenging the traditional narrative. Despite these efforts, Charles encountered resistance in the latter part of his reign. In a brutal move reminiscent of his father's ruthless actions, Charles had his own son, Charlemagne, blinded following a failed rebellion. This extreme measure underscores the significant threat Carloman posed to his father's authority, as he sought secular power after being raised in captivity. During the later years of Charles the Bald's rule, a rapid sequence of significant occurrences transpired following the passing of his sibling Lace in 875 AD. Charles, eager to establish dominance over Italy and the Empire, faced opposition from his elder brother Louis the German, who held sway in East Francia. Charles aimed to revive the Frankish and Roman Empire, triggering a conflict with Louis that reached a climax in an unsuccessful invasion into West Francia by Louis. By 876 AD, Louis the German had passed away, leaving Charles as the sole surviving heir of Lace the Pious. In the absence of Louis the German, Charles saw an opening to pursue his ambitions of revitalising the empire. However, his plans were thwarted by Louis' descendants at the Battle of Andoc. Undeterred, Charles shifted his focus to aiding the Pope in Rome against the Saracens, only to meet his demise in 877 AD in the mountain pass of Monsini. He then passed the reins of West Francia to his eldest son, Louis the Stammer, and entrusted Italy to Carloman of Bavaria, the eldest son of Louis the German. Carloman, who had long been destined to inherit Italy before Charles's intervention, had a distinguished military career and was known as Picosimus, or most warlike. However, a stroke in his 50s left him unable to speak, forcing him to step down from power and eventually leading to his passing. His territories then passed to his brother, Louis III of Bavaria, marking the end of a tumultuous chapter in the history of the Franks and Romans. In their attempts to solidify their reigns, Louis the German and Charles the Fat faced numerous challenges in maintaining control over their expansive Carolingian territories. Louis, in a strategic move reminiscent of Charles the Bald, chose not to crown his sons to prevent potential uprisings. However, this decision backfired as his sons exploited the power and resources granted to them, leading to internal discord within the realm. The vast geographical expanse of the Carolingian Empire posed significant governance challenges, compelling rulers like Louis to decentralise authority by entrusting key regions to loyal allies, often their own progeny. This decentralisation strategy was a pragmatic response to the logistical difficulties posed by limited transportation and communication networks during that era. Despite the inherent risks of empowering potential rivals, Carolingian monarchs like Louis the German grappled with finding the delicate balance between central control and decentralised administration to effectively manage their sprawling domains. Similarly, Charles the Bald's attempt to neutralise potential threats by secluding his son Carloman in a monastery failed to prevent internal strife, highlighting the intricate power dynamics within the Carolingian ruling family. The itinerant nature of Carolingian rulers like Louis the German, who undertook extensive journeys to mediate disputes and convene assemblies, underscored the practical challenges of governing a vast and diverse realm. With no standing army at their disposal, Carolingian kings relied on local allegiances and resources, often vested in their own descendants, to uphold their authority across the various regions under their rule. The ongoing tensions between centralised governance and regional autonomy within the Carolingian Empire underscored the intricate political landscape that shaped the reigns of monarchs like Louis the German and Charles the Fat. The unrest that plagued the Carolingian Empire extended its reach into East Francia, where a familiar cycle of rebellion, remorse, and reconciliation played out, mirroring events occurring in other parts of the empire. Charles the Fat, following a failed revolt, strategically relinquished his authority as a symbolic gesture to seek absolution, showcasing a shrewd understanding of the shifting political landscape. Teaming up with his brother Louis the Saxon, they demonstrated prowess in combating neighbouring factions like the Danes, Saxons and Slavs, securing notable triumphs on the battlefield. East Francia's ties to the European slave trade facilitated the movement of Slavic captives to Byzantine and Islamic territories through intermediaries such as the Venetians. The city of Venice, in addition, acted as a conduit for introducing exotic luxuries to Europe, nurturing a culture of extravagant spending among the upper echelons of Frankish society. Despite being sometimes viewed as less refined compared to its western counterparts, East Francia boasted a well-established administrative setup. Even in the absence of royal edicts, the rulers and officials in the region exhibited proficiency in Latin literacy. During Louis the German's reign, a plethora of official records and legal papers were produced, underscoring a high degree of administrative competence. The silver coins minted in East Francia adhered to the monetary standards established by Charlemagne, indicating the region's seamless integration into the economic structure of the Carolingian Empire. Historians have painted the period spanning from 840 to 888 within the Carolingian Empire as a time characterized by territorial disintegration, internal discord, weakening central authority, Viking raids, and the rising power of the nobility. This era witnessed a waning allegiance to the ruling dynasty and a growing sense of disenchantment among the populace at large. The fabric of the empire seemed frayed, with challenges emerging from various fronts, leading to a sense of instability and uncertainty permeating throughout the realm. The decline of the Carolingian Empire marked a significant turning point in European history as separate realms, such as France and Germany, began to assert their independence from the imperial authority. The ruling sibling monarchs of the time did not see themselves as mere sovereigns of individual nations, but rather as crucial components of an empire that they sought to restore to its former grandeur. Following the passing of Louis the German's son, the thrones of Bavaria and Italy were successively passed to his siblings, ultimately leading to Charles the Fat's coronation as emperor and the potential consolidation of all Frankish territories under his rule. In the realm of West Francia, the brief reign of Louis the Stammerer, the eldest son of Charles the Bald, was abruptly cut short by his untimely death, leaving behind two sons who shared the title of king but met tragic fates at a young age. These sudden losses within a condensed period underscored the instability and uncertainty that plagued the Carolingian Empire during this tumultuous era. Between 875 and 884 AD, the Carolingian Empire faced a severe crisis as 8 descendants of Charlemagne perished, sparking waves of turmoil among the Franks. This period of doubt and calamity can be likened to witnessing the Kennedy family's string of tragedies in the late 20th century, where a once powerful dynasty struggled with unforeseen adversities and internal divisions. Ultimately, the Carolingian Empire found itself at a critical crossroads during this era of turmoil and sorrow, struggling to preserve its authority and unity amidst internal conflicts and external threats. The challenges faced by the empire during this period would shape the course of European history for years to come. The transition in power dynamics from Carolingian rule to the emergence of Boso of Provence as a strong contender for the West Frankish kingship during the late 9th century marked a significant shift in the political landscape. Initially, Boso's claim to the throne may have seemed weak, it gained traction due to his strategic alliances, influential connections, and marriage into the imperial family. The resistance put up by the remaining Carolingian rulers, particularly Charles the Fat, highlighted the fierce competition for supremacy and legitimacy that characterised this pivotal period. After Boso's eventual defeat, the downfall of the Carolingian dynasty started to unravel. The subsequent era was marked by a noticeable lack of virtue and authority among the Carolingian monarchs, sentiments that were echoed by prominent historians like Edward Gibbon. The derogatory labels attached to these rulers reflected a widespread perception of incompetence and inadequacy. The removal of Charles the Fat from power further accelerated the disintegration of the empire, setting the stage for a tumultuous period of unrest and power struggles among various factions vying for control. The removal of Charles the Fat from the throne threw the empire into a state of chaos, with regional governors, bishops, and feudal lords seizing authority over different territories. The legitimacy of titles and claims to power became increasingly questionable as numerous contenders emerged, each seeking dominance through military might and political manoeuvring. This turbulent period, spanning from 888 AD until the rise of Otto I in 962 AD, was characterised by a turbulent and disorderly pursuit of authority, a narrative vividly depicted by Gibbon in his accounts of this turbulent chapter in European history. In the annals of history, the regal purple garments worn by Charles the Bald, Lothair the Stammerer, and Charles the Fat have etched a lasting impression, although Einhard's depiction of them seems to carry a certain bias. The evolution of Carolingian epithets from the earlier heroic monikers like the Hammer and the Great to the later, less flattering titles of Stammerer, Fat, and Bald is a fascinating study. It is worth noting the irony inherent in some of these nicknames, such as Pepin the Short, contrary to his towering son Charlemagne, or Charles the Bald, who was ironically quite hirsute. However, epithets like Pepin the Hunchback were clearly intended to diminish and debase the individuals they referred to. The majority of these Carolingian sobriquets were not bestowed contemporaneously, with Charles the Fat's label being assigned centuries later in the 12th century. Historical records describe Charles as tall and possessing fair hair, yet his struggles in siring a legitimate male heir posed a significant challenge to his reign. The discontent among the nobility arose from their limited interactions with the king and the uncertainty surrounding the line of succession after Charles the Fat's rule. The downfall of Charles the Fat's monarchy can be attributed to a myriad of factors, including the rising power of the aristocracy, incursions by Vikings and Saracens, and the absence of a clear heir. The nobles, accustomed to a ruler who actively promoted their interests, found themselves marginalised from the seat of authority, impeding their ability to advance their own agendas. Ultimately, Charles was deposed and exiled to Armenia, where he dispatched the revered True Cross relic to his duplicitous kin, Arnulf of Carinthia. The tale of Charlemagne's vision and the enigmatic inscription on the sword-bearer's blade ignited a profound fascination among both scholars and historians alike. These cryptic words symbolised the zenith of Charlemagne's rule, the subsequent decline after his passing, the rise of corruption and despotism, and ultimately the conclusion of an era. While this story of a mythical dream may have been a concoction, it held sway in the court of Leo the German and continued to captivate the intellects of numerous generations of learned individuals. In his seminal work, Heart of Europe, A History of the Holy Roman Empire, Peter H. Wilson delves into later Carolingian rulers. Despite enduring criticism, they were not as ineffectual as commonly believed, with their principal obstacle arising from the failure to produce legitimate heirs. According to Regina of Brum, a Benedictine monk, the internal power struggles within the dynasty were a result of their inability to instill the necessary virtues required for governance in their successors. He proposed that, had a new line of heirs been nurtured to carry on the legacy, the dynasty and the empire might have endured and prospered. Europe experienced a significant transition as the Franks were overshadowed by emerging powers, paving the way for the resurgence of the empire through the Saxon dynasty of Anian. This transformative period marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. As the Ionian rulers inherited the mantle of the Frankish Empire, but also brought their unique approach to governance, the torch was passed from the Franks to the Ionian, symbolising a shift in leadership and vision for the empire. Reflecting on the rise and fall of the Franks, one is struck by the intricate and multifaceted nature of their historical trajectory. This narrative encapsulates a pivotal moment in history, bridging the gap between late antiquity and the onset of the Middle Ages. While the Franks proudly carried the legacy of ancient Rome, their strategies for expanding and consolidating power in the 8th and 9th centuries reflected a blend of tradition and innovation, shaped by the challenges and opportunities of their time. Despite the passage of time, the saga of the Franks endures as a compelling and thought-provoking tale that continues to resonate with those who study and contemplate the complexities of medieval European history. As we reach the end of our tranquil journey through the history of the Franks, I hope you found this exploration as fascinating and soothing as I did. From the early days of the Merovingian Dynasty to the grandeur of the Carolingian Empire, the legacy of the Franks continues to echo through the corridors of history. Thank you for joining me, Sophie, on the ASMR History channel. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more relaxing historical narratives. Until next time, may your dreams be filled with the whispers of ancient tales and the gentle embrace of the past.